I do have.
With 12-inch diameter tubes.
What's the acronym for a big ass gas heater?
Bag. Yeah, so it's been, I mean, and the burden's really fallen on, the, like, 2 or 3 of the younger providers and the nurses in general. And so, because I'm the old guy, they don't let me see anybody with anything. So to answer your question, the clinic itself, inside the clinic itself is actually, I think we've done a really good job of keeping it super safe. So,
Good.
and we're actually probably going to kick it up a little bit and start having, when we see patients, we've just been wearing the regular surgical mask, and depending on the length of a visit and stuff, we may start wearing N95s in the rooms. So, which is not great. They are horribly uncomfortable. So for any length of time.
Am I the only one that ever notices that John has a halo?
Yeah, I can see it. Well deserved, actually.
Is that better? Let's see.
No.
It's kind of neat. It's kind
Go
of
back to the halo.
sort of an aura. Yeah.
Funny.
Hi, Beth.
Hi.
Hello. Good morning.
No, don't say good morning. It's been a long day already, so we don't want to start over.
I heard, I might have already mentioned this somewhere in one of the meetings. When daylight savings came by, I saw some GIF, whatever you call it, said adding another hour to 2020 is like having a bonus track on a Yoko Ono album.
Oh, man.
Like, you took away my daylight to run in after school. Like, that was pretty much all I had left in 2020.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Are we waiting for Tessa?
So, the other one I heard similar to that was 2020 lasting almost as long as a Grateful Dead jam session.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like fire, sugar into fire into estimated profit. There, nice. 2020. Right, Kevin?
Right, Terry.
You're right back.
That's too bright. Messing with lighting.
Mayor, it's Preston. I think we're good on our end whenever you're ready. Tessa's the only member of council not present, I believe.
Okay. Wait till Eric gets back and then Eric and Russ both get started.
Great.
It's pretty bright. At least I can see my pad.
How'd the site visit go? I couldn't quite get there.
It was good.
Good.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little later.
Yep.
I went and checked out the Weatherstone just to see what the weather was like.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
Definite sense of humor. All right. I will call the regular town council meeting of the town of Ridgway of Wednesday, November 11th, 2020 to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Cheek is absent. Grambly,
Here.
Lakin,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Schuyler,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Thank you. I wanted to remember to acknowledge that today is Veterans Day, and my father was a veteran in World War II, and I just wanted to remember to thank all the veterans, either in attendance here or just in the town of Ridgway and the world. I think we all know how important it is that we have people willing to step up and serve in the armed forces to defend our country. And just want to make sure I remember to acknowledge that. And again, thank everybody who's served in the armed forces, and Veterans Day is for you. So thank you.
Here, here.
Well said.
That brings us to additions or deletions to the agenda. Do we have any?
I have 2 items to add to the consent agenda.
Okay,
The approval of the restaurant or renewal of the restaurant liquor license for Thai Paradise and the tavern liquor license for the Uray County Fairgrounds.
all righty. Anything else?
No?
Hearing none, I will ask if anybody on council wants to pull anything off the consent calendar to be considered separately, or if not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a motion to approve?
Second,
Terry seconds. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler,
aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Oh, and
And
Councilmember Cheek is now here.
Hi, sorry I'm late, and I.
Thank you. That brings us to public comments. Establish time on the agenda for items that anyone in the public might want to address with council for items that aren't otherwise on the agenda. Does anybody have anything? If they do, can you use your raise hand feature? Hopefully everybody knows how to do that by now in Zoom. I see Tammy has her hand up. Go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, and I know this is on the agenda. Tessa, I understand that you're resigning. We're sorry to see you go. And I don't know if I should discuss later, but I wanted to find out or have you guys bring up at that point in time what the process is going to be to replace her seat. And want to bring up, I know that Robert Collins, who had run for that seat, did put in his letter of interest to fill that seat in that vacancy.
Okay, great. Yep, that's on the agenda for a little later, so we'll be bringing it up then. Anybody else have anything? Give it a second. Okay, if no one does, that takes us on to public requests and presentations. Public comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Discussion of each item may be limited to 20 minutes. Item number 8 is presentation of the 2019 fiscal year audit. Is Pete Blair here with us tonight?
He was on here. It looks like maybe he dropped off. Does anyone see Pete's name on here?
No, it was there earlier.
Nope.
Well,
Let me see who else is on there.
yeah.
Somebody else from his office, maybe.
I wonder if he may just have connection issues, if we could like skip and come back to it or something. Because I saw him twice, I think. Oh,
He's, actually, I see him. So we'll get him set up with video and audio. And
There we go.
Hi, Pete.
Welcome, Pete. Can you hear us?
doesn't look like he has the audio capability right now.
He's trying. There we go. Pete, can you hear us? He's muted. Can you unmute him? There we go. Welcome, Pete.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
For some reason, I had to download another version to get on. I have no idea why.
That's technology for you.
It's
Yeah, we
2020.
haven't had any problems. We've been zooming a lot lately, but this is the first time we had a problem. So,
Well, it wasn't too bad.
no,
Welcome.
how you doing?
Good.
You got any snow up there?
Yeah, it's got a few inches left on the ground from the last storm, and definitely chilly tonight.
Yep.
Winter is here.
You want me to start going over the audit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, the audited financial statements look pretty good because we have an increase and all the funds as far as the governmental funds and the enterprise funds. So if you go to like page 1 and 2, that's just our audit report. And basically it's a clean opinion. Everything is fairly stated and your accounting records are always in good shape. So we didn't have any problems there. If you go to page 5, there's going to be a kind of a table there. And it's going to give you the breakdowns of as far as the balance sheet for the governmental activities compared to 2018 compared to 2019. You're also going to have a breakdown for the business type activities, which of course is your sewer and your water fund. And then it's going to give you some totals there on the far column. And if you look at those totals, the big increase we had in capital assets, in current other assets is cash. Cash actually increased from 2018 to 2019 by about 400,000. Everything else pretty well stayed the same. So no big difference there. And then if you go to page 6, it kind of gives you a breakdown of the revenues and expenses for the year compared to 2018. And if you look at that and you go to the far right-hand column, the biggest increase was probably in sales tax. And also the biggest increase was you got a bunch of donations to do a project. Everything pretty well stayed the same as 2018. And if you look at the third line from the bottom where it says increase in net position, we increased, all the funds increased by about 630,000. And then I'm going to skip a little bit and go to page 15. If you go to page 15, this is the actual revenues and expenses for the general fund and the capital project fund. And if you look at the third line from the bottom where it says excess of revenues over expenditures, we increased the fund balance in the general fund by about 185,000. And we increased the fund balance in the capital projects fund of about 23,000. And part of that miscellaneous income I was telling you about that we increased compared to 2018, if you look at the capital projects fund, we had donations of about 147,000. So if you look at the ending fund balance for the general fund, you have about 7 months of reserves compared to your normal expenditures, which on the average is really good because normally the average is about 3 months. You guys have about 7 months.
That's great.
Excuse me?
I said that's great.
Yep. If you go to page 18, and if you go, this is the water and the sewer fund. And if you go down to the third line from the bottom where it says changes in net position, the water fund increased by about 179,000. The sewer fund increased by about 37,000. Now, remember you guys actually did a increase, I think it was an increase of water fees, which I think was a good idea. And if you look on page 19, and you go down to about halfway down that page, you're going to see ending cash balance. We increased the cash balance for the water fund by about 154,000. The sewer fund increased by about 35,000. So you have two healthy cash balances in the water and the sewer fund. If you combine those two together, you have cash in the enterprise funds of about 1.6 million. And then I'm going to skip a little bit and go to page 28. And if you go about halfway down that page, this is where all the investments are for, where all the cash and investments are for the town. And as I said, at the end of 2019, you had about 3.2 million. That increased by about 400,000 compared to 2018. All the funds are pretty well secured. And if you go down about the third paragraph from the bottom, most of your money is invested in either C-Safe or Color Trust. And you have about 2.2 million of those two funds, of which they're all AAA rated. And the reason why they do that is you're getting actually better interest rates by going to C-Safe and Color Trust. And as I said, they're AAA rated. If you go to page 29, it lists all the debt for the town of Ridgway, and you have just less than about 2 million. And that's pretty well average for a town of your size. The only thing you may want to look at, you have that general obligation bond. Right now, interest rates are real low. You might actually be able to you might want to maybe look at maybe refinancing that at a lower interest rate. It may save you some dollars, it may not, but you might want to just look at it. And then if you go to from page 36 all the way down, it actually gives you budget comparisons for the revenues compared to all the expenses by all the funds. And you're going to notice that you do a really good job as far as budgeting, and everything looked pretty good. I went through that pretty quick. The overall scenario is that the town of Ridgway increased their net position for all the funds by about 650,000. All the funds increase, and you guys did a great job. Stayed within your budget, and that's why you increased it. Now, who knows what's going to happen right now with COVID-19? But everybody we've been kind of talking to basically says that sales tax hasn't really been affected for a lot of the towns by COVID. But I'm sure that there may be other things that have been. So who knows how that's going to work out.
True, that would take a crystal ball we don't have.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Pete. That's very helpful. I think it's once again, kudos to staff, Pam Kraft and her team for doing such a great job budgeting. She's an old pro with this, and it shows. So
yeah,
thanks.
They did a really good job, and did a really good job with the records too. So
does anybody have any questions for Pete? Including anybody in the audience. If anybody has any questions, raise your hand. All right, seeing none. Staff, do you have anything you want to add?
Thank you, Pete, once again.
well, thank you. I'm glad I got my thing to work.
Us too. All right, well, thanks, Pete. That's great. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next year, I guess.
Good, thank you. You guys take it easy too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. That brings us to item number 9, presentation from Ridgway Chautauqua Society regarding annual funding request. It says Rob Austin's name on it. Rob, are you here?
I am here, Council.
What planet
Look
are
like
you
you
on?
might be
Ridgway?
out of this world.
I'm out here overlooking all those activities that the Ridgway Town Council is conducting these days.
So, including dark sky, apparently.
Dark sky. This is dark sky, man. Come on.
I think you just put John's halo to shame.
Well, it's been very nice to listen to another audit presentation to the town. It's right up my alley. So congrats. I just wanted to start off by saying we are joined by other members of the Ridgway Chautauqua Society. I believe Sheila is on.
Sue
let's
Hush.
see. Sue, I think is on too.
And I guess, let me stop you there for a second, Rob. Bo, I'm also a member of the Ridgway Chautauqua Society Board. Do I need to recuse myself from this discussion? Basically, it's just a presentation of a funding request. I'm happy to recuse myself if you think I need to.
I think the fact that you disclosed it is appropriate. As you know, Mayor and Council, the conflict rests with you, so therefore it's your decision. But seeing how this is just a presentation and not necessarily an action item, I think that you should be okay.
All right. Why don't I do this just for complete transparency? Why don't I let Eric take the discussion from here, and I'll just sit here and keep my mouth shut.
Okay. All right, Rob, it's all you.
All right, thank you. I wanted to take this time on behalf of Sheila and Sue and the entire Charbonneau Theater and Ridgway Chautauqua Society to thank the town for all you have done for us this year and in previous years. And what we're on the agenda for tonight is to just present our 2021 funding request to the town. I know you'll be discussing this at your November 19th workshop, your budget workshop. So basically, I believe this is just informational information. I hope you have all received the letter that the Chautauqua Society sent to you.
We did.
And specifically, I would ask you to look at page 2 of that, where we highlight all the amazing things that the Charbonneau Theater and the Chautauqua Society have done. If you didn't know it, we put on 91 events this year during a COVID summer and a fall. And I really believe it showcased the fact that we are Ridgway's living room. And I know in the first month or two of our programs, we were only one of 3 community theaters in the state of Colorado that were putting on programs. And so I think that's pretty amazing. We also secured some PPP funding. We also ran 8 theater productions. I mean, think about that. People were able to go to productions outside and behind the firehouse 8 times this year. And the 610 Gallery had record sales in the gallery and the showings that we had. So those were a number of positive things we did. And obviously, due to COVID, we had a number of issues facing us, such as fundraising. We lost our major fundraising event this year, which was servicing the beer tent at our concert series. And but along with staff, which is an incredible group of, I want to say hundreds, but it's really a staff of 3 that have been doing all of this work all summer. And it's all highlighted there on page 2. So I know you'll be looking at this funding request. It's the same request we put in for last year and the year before, and hope you'll look favorably upon this request at your workshop next week. So Sue and Sheila, any questions from you?
No questions for me. Good job, Rob. I think that our staff, it's actually a person and a half because we share with Weehawken. And so they have just done an amazing job down there making a safe place for our community to enjoy live music and lectures and so on. So we think they did a pretty darn good job.
So thank you all very much for considering this next week. And personally, I want to say best of wishes to Tessa on whatever you do in the future. And we have been blessed to have you on council for these last couple of years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
Anybody on council have any questions or comments for Rob? I guess I'll just say that, I think the Sherbino and the Ridgway Chautauqua Society and the partnerships with Weehawken is really is the crown jewel of Ridgway in a lot of ways. And the things that it's brought to town over the last several years have been pretty remarkable. And speaking for me, I will certainly look more than favorably on that request.
Yeah, likewise, I saw some wonderful intimate performances back there at the 610 patio 610, however you refer to it. That was a really neat venue that you created, and it was really well done.
Yeah, second that. Some of my best memories of the summer. It's a really amazing new venue and just on time. So good work.
Anybody from the audience have any questions or comments for Rob? Just go ahead and raise your hand. I can't see it, but somebody can.
Not seeing any, Eric.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rob, and we will certainly take that under advisement for the budget workshop next week. Good to see you again from a personal.
Thank you very much. We sure appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so moving along, we will go to item number, let's see, make sure it's right on here. Item number 10, proposal to place a honeybee apiary in a public space. Vicki Hawes of the Ridgway Community Apiary. I see you're on here, Angela. Can somebody unmute her, please?
I think I'm unmuted. I don't seem to be able to get video on. It's okay
saw
though.
your video for a half a second when you first got on, but there you go.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Well, thank you all for allowing us to be on the agenda this evening. There's 4 of us, Fred Boyle, Judy Hazen, Angela Hawes, and myself, Vicki Hawes, are proposing to create a community honeybee farm here in Ridgway. We believe this endeavor will contribute to invaluable biodiversity here. Our vision is to create a cooperative communal apiary, foremost to support these precious pollinators. Other benefits, besides of course amazing local honey, is to bring people together, bee hosts and spectators, to learn experientially the importance and value of biodiversity on our planet. And we believe the more people who grow to learn about and grow to love honeybees, the more advocates there will be for them. And this is an interesting fact, 80% of the pollination of fruits, vegetables, and seed crops in the United States is accomplished by honeybees. So they're very, very important. Part of our mission is to educate people about the craft of bee hosting, as well as the importance of them as pollinators. And I just got started this summer. I had the good fortune to be friends with Fred Boyle, who's a bee master of 50 years. So he's our main guy. And it's not an easy thing to just jump into on your own. So we were thinking this would be like a really safe, supportive environment for people who might have interest in it, but maybe don't know enough or don't feel confident enough to go it alone, or maybe they just don't have the right space for it. I was really lucky to have pretty much a bear-proof fence around my property, and it just worked. But like, this is going to be a place where kind of parallel in some ways of the community garden. It would be like a contained area where there'd be a minimum of 6 hives, depending on how many people want to join us, and hopefully it would continue to grow each year. So what we're asking of the town council is to consider allocating us a parcel of land to do this on. We did meet with a couple of members of the Ridgway Community Garden, but not enough to get a definitive answer. We need to make that probably a little more official, but the general consensus we got was one of like support, and they would probably be willing to let us use a section of like the far southwest corner of the acre they have on Green Street. That wouldn't be the only spot. Another thought was I think the school owns the area north of the garden. And that could be like something we could work with the schools, but our first preference is to go through the town and have it be a part of the town. Because one of the benefits of that for Ridgway would be you could get designated as a Bee City USA, which would be sort of like, another little feather in the cap, like dark sky. Not that that's a small thing. Didn't want to downplay that, but it's just a really nice certification to have that we support honeybees. We need to get moving on this. I know you guys have your process. The bees arrive in May, so we would need to get up bear fencing and have the beehive building workshop before that. And we've got all the tools and the expertise to get that done. And hopefully we could have a little workshop right on the site, whatever land we end up using. And Judy Hazen is the person in the group that found out the Colorado Parks and Wildlife will likely, not 100%, donate electric fence for keep predators out. If we have a 6 in the farm. And let's see what else. Another big piece of this is that it's going to be treatment free, which I believe the town of Ridgway would be big support. So it'd be no chemicals, all organic and very natural. Let's see what else. I think that's about it. If you have any questions at this point, I'm assuming you guys got the little 2-page proposal that we sent.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions for Vicki?
Just a quick minor question. Would you be able to engage the school in any way, regardless of where it's located for
Absolutely, yeah. A big reason we want to do this is to educate as many people as possible. And the vision would be, that's why we kind of want a high profile place, or a place where just passersby could see it, because we would have probably signs on the outside with information and like contacts if they wanted to join, and just like, it'd be an educational place for sure. That's like a very big pillar of what we're proposing.
Vicki, is that southwest corner of the garden enough space for what you're thinking of doing?
Fred, who's the master, said we would need anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of an acre for what we're using. So I can't really visualize acreage when I look at land, but he seemed to think that was adequate.
And one of my other questions, I guess, in terms of talking with the community garden, I know they have plans for sort of expansion over the years into doing different things in those areas. And I'm wondering, some of them might be very compatible, like fruit trees. But you haven't really finished your sort of chat with them yet, it sounds like.
No, it's definitely a work in progress. And like I said, there was only, to the best of my memory, I think it was Chris Lance and Judy Chamberlain were the only ones there. So it was not like the whole board that we were able to meet with. And like I said, that's, I'm pretty certain the town has some other parcels of land. That's just that would be an ideal spot, because it seemed like it'd be a nice conjunction with the community garden. We certainly wouldn't feel like that's the only place that would work for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the community garden is a perfect fit, especially if you think of its proximity to the school, just the natural fit with a garden, and as Eric said, them maybe eventually having fruit trees and such. And I also think, this seems to me like something that would naturally evolve over the years, and it could end up being that it expands into a new area, a new fenced area that's just to the north, that's sort of appended to their existing fenced area. And that, you mentioned a couple of times that you wanted on town property. I mean, that is town property. It's something that we have an agreement with community garden folks to do there, but it is literally town property, and it's really kind of, to me, one of the few, we don't own a lot of property in town. We have significant parks, but I'm not sure something like this is a very good fit with our park system. Personally, I just think I'd rather have it be closer to the school and part of, it just seems like a really good fit to have it be part of the community garden or appended to it in some way.
So, I mean, I think this is a great idea, Vicky, and just so that don't take my questions as being negative. But I guess my question, if that was to work out with the community garden, my question to Bo is, would we have a contract MOU, I can't remember what it's called with them. We would probably have to do some significant amendment to that. Would you think?
Are you there, Bo?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. So,
real great.
given that we have the community garden has a contract with us for the use of the portion of Green Street.
Right.
If we were to add the apiary in there, would that require a significant change in that contract?
No, I think we'd want to have consent with the community garden, and then we probably just need a quick amendment to allow for subleasing.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I go back? I'm sorry, Councilman Terry asked about educational component, and we, just to elaborate on that, we've talked quite a bit about getting the schools involved and bringing them for tours and like actually specifically including Ridgway schools in that, just to follow up on that.
That'd be great.
That's a huge part of it, for sure.
Which is, as you mentioned, John, is another reason to have it in that proximity, because they take walking field trips all the time from the school.
Right. And it, well, I think as Eric said, I'm totally supportive of the idea. I just want to make sure we are very strategic about where we do it. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think the community garden area makes a lot of sense in terms of, folks who might have bee allergies or whatnot. If you're working in a community garden, we have a chance to do the garden knows that there's, bees nearby, right? That information can be shared versus, John said it might not be a great fit with parks elsewhere in town, just because that tends to be more, spur of the moment, we stopped by the park. We weren't really planning on this, that, or the other thing. But I think it's a great idea. I think it's one of those things that's being proposed that fits really well with our master plan, that isn't asking a ton of us as council to contribute funds. And if we do own land that works for this, it seems like an excellent use of that space.
Yeah. Is there general agreement on that? It looks like there is.
Yeah.
Does the community gardens leased borders only encompass the existing fenced-in area, or does it go further to the south from there, like towards the little pump house, which is owned by the school, I think?
I don't remember. Bo, do you have a sense?
They in the meeting we were in, they told us that they had an acre there that I think it went about to the pump house.
Yeah,
think they might
as I
utilize about half
recall,
of
it
it.
is a little bit larger than the existing fenced area.
I doubt it goes all the way to the pump house, but it might. We can take a look. We can figure it out. I see a couple of hands up. I'm not sure who had their hand up first because I just noticed it, but let me take Jennifer's question first. Jennifer Cram.
Hi, I don't know anything about bees, so maybe this is a stupid question, but it's sort of, I guess I would call it grassland, ranchland out there. Do bees like that versus in town, there's more trees. Bees don't pollinate trees, but just asking.
Fruit trees.
Yeah.
Vicky, do you have an idea of whether that's an appropriate spot for their liking, for the bees liking?
Yeah, so when people ask questions, can I answer directly? I forgot the protocol.
Well, this is more informal than a public hearing, so yes.
Okay. Honeybees can fly up to, I think, 5 miles from their hive. And so those bees could pretty much get anywhere in the town where there's flowering plants. And I'm not at all like an expert at this, but what I do know is like dandelions are one of the very first flowers we get. And that's a really important flower for the honeybees. So it's like maybe not the best one for us to be killing, just as an educational thing. But yeah, they can go 5 miles from the hive, easily 5 to 6 miles daily.
Yeah,
Like
and
on every flight.
I would weigh in just to say that, you know, having been here in the area for a long time and knowing some of the apiaries, I buy honey by the gallon, and that typically you see apiaries and fenced bee yards on the edges of fields, just like that one out there. So I think it probably would be fine. Deidre, did you have a question?
Less of a question and more of a comment. I just wanted to say that I think a community apiary would be a really cool addition to our creative district as well. It's definitely producing a product that's important in our community, and I think it's a creative approach to doing that, having a community apiary. So I love that concept and would love to see it be part of our creative district if it happens.
Put it on the roof. Put it on the roof of Space to Create.
So this is Shay. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things, and I'll share my screen real quick. As the dorky planner that I am, I just want a quick reminder, we do have a plan for Green Street Park that was adopted in 2015. And this big white area here is what is the approximately 1.1 acres that is leased to the community garden. So there's an exhibit in the agreement, and it kind of just points to this leased area. If we look at, can you guys see my GIS map now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you look at this, you can kind of see, let me turn this parks layer off. You can see the community garden is only up here. This is the little pump house down at Parkside Place, almost at Parkside Place. So if we go back to the map, it's that is, you know, way down here is the pump house. So it definitely doesn't go down to the pump. But it is, you know, it is quite a large space that is already leased. So just some clarification.
Okay, on that drawing that we're looking at there, can you use your hand cursor just to show us kind of, it looks to me like right about where your hand is there is the size of the existing fenced area.
It kind of, so if let's look at this. So Marion Overlook comes in right here. Zoom in a little bit for those to try to see it better. So Marion Overlook, and then if we go to the GIS map and we zoom in a little bit, Marion Overlook is right here.
Yeah.
So it's almost twice as big.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it seems like to me. I mean, hard to measure it. It gets narrower, and there's like a parking area.
There's a ton of space there. There's a
you know, right now it seems to go about down to here.
Yeah. Can you go back to the GIS map for a moment?
Yep.
If you see off to the far right on Marion Overlook, where it says number 525, that's where my 2 apple trees are planted, by the way, and I need those bees really bad.
Terry has to recuse himself now.
Well,
He absolutely does. That's a direct conflict.
I'm all abuzz. Sorry.
Thank you, Jay. That's very helpful.
Jay, we love your nerdy plannerness. It's so helpful.
Yes, thank you, Shay.
That was great. So I think I'm hearing pretty strong consensus from council that we're fans of the idea. It sounds like we'd like Vicki and her team to arrange a more formal meeting with the community garden board and get their blessing, hopefully, on locating it somewhere on the much larger piece of ground that they are leasing from the town. Seeing if you can make that work. And if, of course, if that for some reason doesn't work out, we're happy to talk about other options. I just think I'm glad Beth mentioned, and it was kind of at the periphery of my thoughts when I first was thinking about this, there are people with bee allergies, and that's just one example of the kind of impact that if we just had an apiary, for instance, out here in Cottonwood Park, there's much more potential there for being a conflict with the general public there. If somebody's just out walking their dog and the dog somehow stirs the bees up and they get stung and they've got an allergy, it could be a potential bad situation. So I think that's just another really good example of why it would be better, I think, if it was somehow connected to the community garden. And as we said before, it just makes all the sense in the world to have it associated with a community garden and as close to the school as that is. So hopefully that can be made to work.
And Mayor, if I may, it's Preston. From staff's perspective, if once Vicki and her team have a dialogue with the community garden folks, we'll take a look at the agreement with the community garden in whatever form it is right now, and start to follow that process for amending it for subleasing if it isn't already in that form, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. Does that make sense to you, Vicki?
It does, and we can certainly do that. Is there anything, do I need to come back to the council, or is just go through the community garden?
Community garden and staff, I believe. Well, this doesn't seem like something that needs a motion or.
No, I think direction is totally appropriate at this point in time. If there's an arrangement that's in place, we'll probably just have to ask the council to amend the existing lease that's there for the community garden.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So to answer your question, Vicki, I think your plan of action should be to meet with the larger community garden board, get a sense for them how open they are to it, and then come back to staff, and staff can help you work out the arrangements that then we would bless in the form of a amended lease with the community garden.
Well, thank you so much for your consideration and your support of this. Much gratitude from us all.
You're welcome. Our pleasure. We're very excited. It's a cool idea. Very Ridgway.
What is the process? What's the process of getting the town designation? Is I assume there's a whole application process?
Bee city.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Dark skies, bees, what else do we want to be?
Bears, apparently.
Judy's working on that, and we will definitely keep you in the loop on that one. We'll do all we can.
Keep us posted.
To not make you guys have to do it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So that takes us to the next item, which is we have two public hearings tonight. And just a reminder, with public hearings, if the public wants to make a comment, I guess before I go into this, I want to make sure, did everybody get a chance to ask questions or make comments about the apiary that's in the audience? Please raise your hand if I missed you. I think we got everybody. All right, so with the public hearings we have.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
This is Robin Cascade, and I'm on the phone, the 6719 number.
Gotcha.
I'm not near a computer. Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to Vicki and crew for that fabulous idea. And just as a member of the community garden, not on the steering committee, but former manager over at the Laura Street Garden before we came to Green Street, I have to say that I think it's a fabulous idea. And those of us who are growing food would be thrilled about the possibility of having more pollinators. So just a thumbs up.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. Nice to hear your support, especially for something we already approved. So thanks for weighing in. All right, so back to the two public hearings we have in front of us. They're both ordinance adoptions, so the staff will take us through it, and then if anybody wants to weigh in and comment, you'll need to raise your hand, and then you'll need to give us your name and your address. And with that, we'll start right in. Item number 11 is adoption of ordinance enacting a new chapter 14-7, title 14 of the Ridgway Municipal Code, establishing small cell regulations. If I remember correctly, we had introduced this a couple months ago, and then we had some changes last month, so we reintroduced it, and this would be the actual adoption. Preston?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. That's exactly right. So right now, this is a public hearing and second reading of, as you said, an ordinance that would establish new small cell regulations here in the town of Ridgway. And you'll probably recall from the last meeting, Dave Zelenak, who's with HR Green, joined us for a meeting, I want to say several months ago now, really good resource in the realm of 5G, that new type of wireless technology, and then well-versed in the realm of small cell regulations. Again, he's with a company called HR Green. We reached out to him and he gave us a variety of thoughts and best practices and substantive edits to consider on these regulations, which some were incorporated in the version before you. And then just to kind of summarize that list of changes, I summarized it last time, but I think it'd be good to just summarize those changes again on these regulations. Safety checks. The permittee would be required to conduct annual tests of its small cell facilities and report the results of those tests to the town. The second one, non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation report. The permittee would be required to enlist a third party to conduct a non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation report to ensure compliance with FCC guidelines for human exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic fields. And then the third one is in the realm of fees, charge an application review fee and charge the safe harbor right-of-way usage rate of $270 for any small cells installed in the town's right-of-way. So again, just wanted to summarize the changes made between the first introduction and then the reintroduction that took place in October. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Preston. Anybody have any questions for Preston on council? We've been dealing with this for a while, so pretty familiar with it.
I think it's good that we're getting out in front of this.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I'm reading online about this, I think we're in a lot better shape than a lot of communities in getting ahead of it like this. So it's great. Anybody in the audience have questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 04-2020 enacting a new chapter 14-7 of Title 14 of the Ridgway Municipal Code establishing small cell regulations.
Second.
I think that was Russ who seconded. So can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilors Cheek,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That takes us to item number 12, adoption of ordinance amending section 7-1 of the Ridgway Municipal Code regarding planning commission term expirations. Shay.
Yeah, thank you. So this one is pretty simple. It was introduced at the meeting just last month. And the idea here is to amend the municipal code to allow terms to expire at 1-year intervals rather than 2-year intervals. So rather than having, it kind of just helps with turnover. We don't have as many commissioners expiring terms at once, so we get to keep some of that knowledge. And basically we would almost replace a commissioner every single year, or a term would expire about every single year instead of multiple in 1 year and none another year. So pretty simple and straightforward.
Great, thank you for that. Does anybody on council have any questions for Shay about that? Pretty straightforward. Anybody in the audience have questions or comments? All right, hearing none, someone want to make a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 06-2020 regarding planning commission term expirations. Second.
Who seconded that? Was that Kevin?
Kevin. Yep, that was me.
Motion made and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselors Cheek,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great, thank you. That passed unanimously. Moving right along, it takes us to policy matters. Item number 12 is discussion and direction related to the Ridgway Visitor Center and Heritage Park. We had a meeting of some of us down there this afternoon with some of the members of the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce to kind of review the status down there. For the audience's information, we're talking about the park that's where the visitor center is, near the intersection of 62 and 550, across the street from Citizens State Bank, and in that corner of the fairgrounds where you drive in, there's a big parking lot. Over the years, that property has been run by the Chamber of Commerce, and it's in more recent years was a kind of joint tenancy with the Ridgway Railroad Museum. And since the Railroad Museum has moved to their new property across from Town Hall here, they are in the process of moving out and vacating the lease, which the Chamber of Commerce was the sublessor under. And so the Chamber's gonna take over the lease again, and we have a master plan for that whole area. So we're here to discuss that tonight. So Preston, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mayor. And I don't have to talk as much because that was a really good summary. So thanks for that. So now that the Railroad Museum's lease termination date's coming up here pretty quickly, really. Can't believe it's November already. This is a really good time for all of us to, kind of get together and have a thorough discussion with folks from the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce. Thanks, Hillary, Tim, and everyone else who's present from the Chamber. And then it's also a really good opportunity to reacquaint ourselves with what's in the strategic master plan for the Visitor Center and Heritage Park, which is appended to the memo. And hopefully you all had a chance to maybe look through that a little bit. But I think that, I know that it's a really great document, really interesting as well, and serves as and should serve as a guide for the future of that area. So just wanted to kind of add on to what you were saying, Mayor. And I mean, at this point, I would like to invite Hillary, Tim, anyone else from the Chamber to kind of help facilitate this conversation and try to, I feel like it could be a pretty informal conversation along the way, so that we can get some questions answered and get a game plan going.
Sounds good. Thanks, Preston. Hillary, you want to give us your take?
Yeah, I think Tim was gonna just kind of lead it off and then I can fill in.
Okay.
So Tim, go for it.
Sure. Thank you. And again, thank you to the council members that were able to show up at 4:30 today to do a site visit. Great ideas and opportunity to move forward here. It's definitely a transition period for us down there in the space, as you guys had mentioned, with the railroad moving out. Also the initial work being done on the site. Top it off, the visitor center was not open this year due to COVID restrictions and concerns there. So a lot of this is culminating with a unique time to look at the space and be real transparent with the council as to what our hopes are and what we're thinking as a board. The culmination of taking over the lease, as well as renewing the marketing contract, we think are important to keep in line, meaning it would be difficult to have, a longer lease period without an agreement to operate as the marketing arm. So it was great to have that open conversation. I think some of our initial things to get the conversation going is looking at that master plan, how do we envision, how do we maybe come to a consensus of what we want the space to be or look like in the future, and what are the appropriate steps to fund it, keeping in mind, it's a limited budget and a long-term plan. So we wanted to get council's feedback on that, and ask those hard questions about the lease as we look to renew into that. Some of that regarding maintenance and upkeep, access to appropriate restrooms was certainly a big theme for us. And where some of that budget comes from, what the obligation of the town versus the chamber's marketing budget is. We, very much see ourselves as a tenant, and would hope to step into the space with, some improvements, to say the least. However, I think we all acknowledge the space is questionable as far as its longevity. It really is kind of run down. So we'd be more putting Band-Aids on it to move forward, and how to use that space effectively without the railroad, and what we can do is the next phase of it. So hopefully that helps further summarize where we're at, and what we're looking for from town council. And I think I can, just add one thing, just reflecting back with John, having been here in town for quite some time and seen different renditions with the chamber. I really like the idea of feeling we're off to a fresh start with what we've accomplished at the chamber, and our transparency, and kind of rekindling a stronger relationship with town that maybe wasn't there as well as it could be in the past. So thank you to you council members for engaging with us in that way. It goes a long way. So again, open and transparent opportunity to ask some hard questions of how to proceed.
Great, thanks, Tim. And I'll just second what you just said. I mean, we've, over the last couple of years, going back to when Colin Lacey was president of the chamber, the evolution of the relationship with the town and the chamber has just, it's come 180 degrees from where it was decades ago. And it's really incredibly exciting to see that we finally now have a mutually supportive and dynamic relationship with the chamber. It's just long time coming, great to have. And thanks to all of you guys putting in your hard work and time on it. Hillary, do you want to add anything, or?
Yeah, my only additions would be that, we're in this unique time with COVID and trying to figure out budgets and not really knowing what we're coming into with winter, and really sort of addressing our long-term plan versus what we're able to do right now, and making sure that we're efficient with money as far as upkeep and maintenance to the building. And if that building is going to be there long-term, how much do we want to sink into it? That sort of question is kind of at the forefront of my mind. And I'd love to take the idea and talked about at the site visit about a subcommittee, and really move that forward starting, as soon as we can. We can think about 2021 budget and what we're able to do.
Yeah, I know, John, also to add to that, one thing that's kind of culminating for us, written into the renewal of the marketing agreement, is seeing our budget by the 15th of January, which with a lot of these outstanding questions is going to be a time crunch for us, and some hard questions to potentially answer, some of which revolve around the duration of the agreement and the lease on the space. I guess it's the board's hope to be able to have some flexibility to do some longer term planning and projections of our budget outside of a year to year strategy, in particular, our contribution financially to the visitor center and what that would look like. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I think that with the new, with the long-term situation we're in with the pandemic, it's not new, it's quite old and tiresome at this point, but I think that the watchword is flexibility and trying to work together and giving people recognition that things are challenging right now, and deadlines might have to be extended and things like that. So thanks for mentioning that. Deidre, did you want to weigh in as in your role as community initiatives facilitator, excuse me?
I mean, I don't think I have much to add other than I think some long-term planning is a great idea. And I'm with Hillary on thinking that this subcommittee idea of bringing town council reps and chamber reps, board reps together to talk about some of these issues is a great idea. That doesn't really help with the need to get something done in time for your January goal there. But I think we've been really focused for the last, I think it's been a couple of years already, on having a plan for that whole space, Heritage Park, as well as the visitor center. And the strategic master plan for the two doesn't really answer all those questions. And I think that's why it's coming back up, because there were options in that plan for what we might do with the visitor center, but nothing concrete really. There were just a few options with a variety of concept designs. So I do think it's appropriate that we're talking about all of this, and it may require more conversation than one night is my guess. Yeah. And maybe some community input as well in a process.
Can I, Tim,
go ahead.
I was just gonna ask him, I'm just gonna ask Tim a quick question. So to make sure that I'm hearing this correct. So part of what I'm hearing you say is that it would be very helpful for the chamber to have a longer term contract with the town in terms of the marketing, as opposed to the year-to-year thing that we have now, would make planning and budgeting a little more solid for you guys.
Yeah, that's fair to say, Eric, for sure. I think that came to be in part that we wanted to coincide it with the lease and our investment into the space as well. Year to year seems, I don't know, less stable.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an ask. And then having that opportunity to reserve portions of the marketing budget that were directed back into improvements themselves as well, giving, the chamber's contribution to this expensive process we're looking into.
So I guess, particularly given our current really good relationship with the chamber over the last couple of years, I would certainly be very open to looking at that marketing agreement being, a 3-year or something along those lines. And no offense to anybody here, but with the town to have some sort of potential out if things just started to fall apart. But I think that would make some sense. And I would also, as we look at those lot funds, we have, you guys are getting, my recollection is you guys are getting 75% and the town gets 25. Somebody
We
I
get
think it's
70.
70-30. Yeah.
70-30. Thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember exactly. I think, and I don't remember the exact wording of where our 30% those funds were supposed to be directed to, but I think it was to mitigate the effects of tourism or something along those lines. We can certainly think about using those funds, if the rest of the council would agree, using some of that 30% funds to sort of help support this, whatever needs to be done to the visitor center as well as the Heritage Park improvements.
No, I think that's a good point, Eric. My question, we talked about a little bit this afternoon about possibly trying to create a longer term lease and long-term agreement about the lodging tax funds. But Bo, what are there Tabor implications there? Bo, can you be unmuted? There. You there, Bo? He may have stepped away for a second. Unless, Shay, can you unmute him?
Yeah, I've tried to unmute him a couple times, John.
He must be.
He might have stepped away, but yeah,
No,
that's a
I'm
question you
here.
raised.
Oh, there
Yep.
he is. There he is. Did you hear my question, Bo?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with my audio. Do you mind repeating it?
Not at all. The question was, and I don't know if you heard the recent discussion about how it might be helpful, how it definitely would be helpful for the chamber to have a little more financial security.
Right, a little bit more long-term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a Tabor implication there?
There is, if it is considered a multi-year fiscal obligation. Now, it's not to say that we couldn't put together an IGA that has a longer term with that magic language that allows it to be subject to appropriation.
Okay, that's kind of what I was figuring, is that whether we call it an IGA or a lease or whatever, that the overarching agreement could have a longer term period, but the actual allocation of the lot funds has to be kind of year to year.
Exactly. So it could be a 3 or 5 year term, but we would still have to have that language in there that things change, if you will.
Yeah. So I think I haven't heard from everybody on council. Is there consensus that we're willing to look at that, trying to work with staff and chamber to create a longer term agreement that gives them some security? Everybody give me a thumbs up on that. Russ, you're okay with that too? Okay.
So Hillary and Tim, I have another potential funding opportunity. I manage the Sharing for Success grant through San Miguel Power. And we extended, today was the deadline for submittals. We have a $20,000 fund, but I extended the deadline out through the 30th. So if you go to smpa.com under our community, what's the banner? Community Program Sharing Success Grants, you can fill out an application online pretty quickly and apply for up to the full amount of 20,000. There are a number of other applicants, but the objectives are for local economic development, maintain strengths in existing businesses, enhance regional prosperity. Basically, you check most of the boxes for this. So I would encourage you to look into applying for that grant.
That sounds great. We applied last year, but we could try again this year. Try our luck again.
There's a committee of 3 board members that make the final choices. So I don't have control over that. I just do the grunt work part of it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Definitely put in another shot.
I appreciate that, and I know Hillary will be on that one right away. It sounds like a great opportunity, and the flexibility again with council for understanding that desire and our willingness through all this to use the lot funds to contribute back to this project as a whole. I think we all want the same thing, which is beautification of this space. It has so much potential. It's such the gateway entry to town, and is really important as far as we're concerned as a marketing item, if you will. So much more than just a visitor center. It is marketing. So yeah, we appreciate that. And I guess the one ask would be, with all this in mind, in your consideration, if perhaps the ability to have a somewhat of an extension on the submittal of the marketing contract, if we knew that was being entertained, I think that would adjust our train of thought a bit, and a little more time to digest how we would project out over, multiple years instead of one is part of the strategy.
No, I think that makes sense. And I might start by suggesting that council direct staff to meet with Tim and Hillary, anybody else from the chamber that wants to be involved, to discuss tweaks to the process that would give you more time, and at the same time give our staff time to work with the town attorney to draft a MOU or IGA, whatever. It's not really an IGA because it's not intergovernmental. It's more of an MOU or a lease that would be longer term and have the necessary wording to allow us to still meet table requirements. But so basically, I'm suggesting we just give staff the green light to work with the chamber to look into some of these changes, draft whatever's necessary for us to approve as soon as necessary. And then piggybacking on that would be asking for a couple of volunteers from council to meet with a couple of volunteers from the chamber board to start meeting to kind of create a 5-year plan, so to speak, on how to start working towards implementing the master plan that we have here. Does that all
John,
make sense?
I'm currently the liaison to the chamber, so I would step up and take that on as part of
Awesome.
that.
Great.
I'd be happy to join if you needed another body.
That'd be great. And anybody else, or I could probably make most of the meetings. Kevin's raising his hand.
I'd like to do it. I'd like to be involved with it.
Great.
That's outstanding, you guys. We really appreciate the support and flexibility and understanding of where we're at, and look forward to getting more comprehensive information about that strategy and long term. And like I said, really want to be partners in this and extremely transparent with how we operate.
Awesome.
So much appreciated.
Yeah, no, I think the excellent thing is that we're all on the same page. We all have the same goals. We realize that things have changed quite a bit in the last 9 months, and we need to work together to find a path forward. And the lease with the Railroad Museum's up, I believe, at the end of the year. So, Preston, are you okay with just getting direction from council to you and Bo sit down, look at an MOU, and then meet with some members of the chamber board to figure out a new plan of action for giving them a little bit more time to submit their plan after the first of the year, and then draft like I say, whatever we're going to call it, an MOU or something that we could then approve somewhere around the same time?
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. I think it sounds like a plan.
Hillary, one quick tip, Hillary, something Tim mentioned, that the park is the gateway to the town. It's also, to some extent, the gateway to San Miguel Power service territory. So I would include that in part of your application.
Hey,
Mary, I'm concerned about your conflicts here.
I got many of them. I can just do like this. Right? I'm conflicted.
Well, it's probably only just the beginning of these asks for such a monumental project, and the ambition of some of these plans is pretty spectacular and would be amazing to see, come to fruition someday. So thank you for those leads, and sure it won't be the last of our reaching out and asking for more.
We've pulled off big projects before. I think we could probably get this one done.
That's right. And there's so many grant possibilities out there between DOLA and Main Street. And, I think this is a classic example of something that there really would pay huge dividends in so many ways that I think we can make it happen. It's going to take some strategic planning, obviously, but I'm excited, and it's great to have you guys as a partner in the project. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, we won't take any more of your time. Appreciate it, and look forward to collaborating with the council.
Great. Same here. All good. Is that good marching orders for you, Preston?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. That takes us to item number 14. Review and action on building permit fee waiver request related to Ridgway Space to Create project. I think I saw Andrew on here. There he is. Welcome. Preston, you want to lead this off, or Shay, who's taking this one to start with?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll go ahead and just kind of introduce it. Yeah, we do have Andrew on here, so I'll unmute him, but
Welcome, Andrew.
Art Space
Thank
is simply requesting a waiver of the building permit and plan review fees associated with the Ridgway Space to Create project. The building permit fee is looking like, based on the valuation we received, $18,327. Plan check fee would be about $13,500 for a total of just north of $31,000. So, Andrew, do you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clark and Council, for allowing me to be here this evening. I'll add that this is the first city, town, or other sort of political meeting I've formally attended virtually. So it's always great to have the opportunity to be in front of the folks who have been supportive of our project in a position where we are very, very close to beginning construction. So I'll just start by saying that as we've moved through this project, we've received so much support from a grassroots level, from community members, from leadership in the town, to the mayor, to the planning commission, and others who are just interested in seeing this project come forward. That it's really humbling, and it's great to be part of this community. And I was looking at your agenda package earlier and seeing the really interesting and frankly really cool looking gateway project that's proposed for the visitor center. So it's really great to be a part of all these sort of really visible and demonstrable advancements within the town of Ridgway. So all that said, we are now from a project perspective essentially moving towards a closing. So we've got our tax credit award, we've got our construction debt secured. We're still doing some fundraising. We're securing the final elements of our anticipated funders for the project, and with that in hand, we're going to start marching towards a closing. We hope to be closed in January and starting construction immediately thereafter. We're working with Stryker Construction, who's done some work within the town of Ridgway. They're based in Montrose, and we're really expecting to have a smooth work plan there, and the work behind the scenes continues to cross the T's and dot the I's and get all the dollars lined up. So it's really phenomenal to be in this position, and I thank those of you who have been supportive all along, those who are maybe new to the project, for all the work that you have done to get us collectively to where we are today. So thank you for that. The request today is really sort of part and parcel with a lot of the work that we do. It's every dollar that we don't have to raise for fees and things like that the community can contribute, allow us to put those dollars into the project and to make it to move forward either more quickly or to put those dollars into the actual project itself. So we're humbly making this request. It's similar to the request that we made to Trinidad, the Space Tree projects, and that was granted there as well. We do understand that this can in some ways create a hardship on communities where there's a cost that has to be borne, but it does allow the project to have that additional support and to reduce what we have to pay in to advance it forward. So I'm happy to take questions from anyone related to this request or anything on the project if they are, and would graciously ask if we could have those fees waived and get us underway. And those permit drawings are expected to be submitted by Friday of this week. So just in a couple days time, we're moving forward. So I will leave it at that.
Thanks, Andrew. That's exciting to hear that the plans are arriving in a couple of days. It's another major milestone in this amazing process of creating 30 brand new affordable housing units in the town of Ridgway. Does anybody have any questions for Andrew? We've got, this isn't the first time we've been asked to waive fees or things like this for workforce housing, for affordable housing. The most recent one was the Habitat for Humanity waiving their tap fees, which in a lot of ways is a bigger deal because we have to reimburse those fees to the various enterprise funds, to the 2 enterprise funds that they would normally have gone to. The building permit fees are they're real costs, but they aren't something that we have to reimburse a fund for. I guess I just wonder if anybody has any comments or questions on council, and then I see I have a hand up in the audience, but I'll give you guys first shot.
I'd like, I am generally and probably in favor of this, but I just like Preston to sort of speak to the fiscal impact of this in a little more detail, if you would.
Yeah, happy to. And I could probably use Shay's help too, since she's, in our planning department and understands the work that goes into plan review and getting those building permits issued. But I cited the numbers. I mean, we're talking just north of $31,000 of real costs to the town, staff, substantial amount of staff time for a project of this magnitude. If council granted, would be waived. So, that's numbers wise. And again, Shay, would love to hear you talk about the time you and Mike in particular spend on reviewing all of that stuff. Now, at the same time, I totally understand the ask. I think we like to think we all do. In short, I think it's, and again, to be candid, it's walking the walk and not just talking the talk in relation to doing what the town can in relation to affordable housing and the crunch that not only this region, but the entire state and a lot of the country is seeing in relation to the lack of affordable housing, attainable housing, workforce housing, whatever you want to characterize it as.
So, Preston, maybe sorry.
Yeah,
maybe
sorry.
I should have been more detailed. So, I guess I can understand, I get the numbers that are there, but when we look at, what is, I'm not sure how to ask this question. What is the real cost of staff time? Does it actually equal those numbers, or those numbers have a little bit of, for lack of a better term, profit built into them?
Oh, I see. That's a really good question. There is a formula and an equation for arriving at that figure. Shay, you might have to help me on that, on what that formula really is. But I don't believe that would be, I believe there's, I don't know what the term would be, but a little bit of above and beyond what the staff time is. But Shay, can you talk to that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, the way that our building permit fees are set up is all based on the valuation. So assuming that, the larger, more complex is more expensive and thus takes more time to review and go over. So the valuation influences the cost of the building permit fee, and then the plan check fee is a percentage of that. And what that covers, you guys, is my time reviewing the permit, Mike's time reviewing the permit, getting everything organized for permits, encroachments, utilities, involving a little bit of maybe even Joanne or Chase on some stuff, and then regular inspections by Mike, our building inspector, throughout the process. So a building like this will require a lot of inspections, just to be sure everything's happening in time and correct, and he has to sign off on every single kind of step of the way. So that is, hopefully that's helpful, Eric, in kind of explaining that. I think in terms of plan review, there's going to be some efficiencies here because we have 3 floors of almost the same thing. And we have a lot of units that are the same. So if the space around the toilet isn't right in one unit, it can probably just be marked in every single one. It's not one giant building that has a ton of unique stuff going on. So I think there are some efficiencies there that aren't that are hard to reflect in that valuation calculation number. Inspections may also be able to be a little bit more efficient because of that. Because this project is an affordable housing project, I think it's fair to say, and Andrew, correct me, but there is some uniformity to the units and the levels and stuff like that, that I think will, it makes the project a bit more simple than the numbers might otherwise show. Is that fair, Andrew?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we strive to make it as equivalent from one to the next as we can for sake of fair housing. We don't want to make, one, 2 bedrooms much, different or more spectacular than others. Obviously, there's differences related to, end units versus an interior unit, fully accessible units versus your typical, but that is correct. We're going to be using, same fixtures and same layouts and stacking them to be efficient, both, as you mentioned, for review, but also for efficiency of design and construction.
And can I just say something also really quick to add to your question there? We are budgeting $10,000 in contractual services for building plan review for that particular project, and building and mechanical inspection and infrastructure inspection. So that's in addition to our normal budget. And we discussed this at the previous budget meeting. Of course, this hasn't been approved by council yet, but it is already worked into the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea behind that is projects that are more complicated can require just additional time that we don't as staff have, so we can hire that out and charge it back to the builder or the owner, or just an expertise, a level of expertise that we're not comfortable with, that we can kind of hire out. Like if Mike's thinking that, that building's huge and I don't want to be reviewing this piece of it, he can kind of choose to hire that out. One last thing to mention on just the cost, or trying to answer Eric's question, because this project has been, the town has been very heavily involved for a long time. My personal piece of reviewing this project is going to be pretty short. So typically, I expect it to almost be equal to reviewing a single family home, just because I have seen everything already as part of planning reviews, as part of a lot of other steps that we have taken. So just to, offer that.
Okay. So it may or may not be that the actual fiscal impact is less in terms of staff time, is maybe less than the 31,000, but maybe not.
Yeah, I would think maybe a bit less, but I don't, it's really hard to quantify because we don't track our time by like exact hours of, what we spend our time on.
Okay. I didn't mean to beat that to death, but thank you.
That's a
All
great
right.
question.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Anybody else have questions for Andrew or Preston or Shay on this? I see Tammy has her hand up. Go
Sorry
ahead, Tammy.
about that. Thank you. So I've been listening and learning about Face to Creatively Come, and I don't know that I'm any more educated on it, unfortunately, because I haven't been living it like you guys. So when we look at what the town has totally invested, the additional amount we want to waive, and having the numbers change all the time because of how long it's taken, what do we think the rental rates are actually going to be for this, and how will this compare to be in competition to any of the other housing divisions going in that are trying to support some of this same issue?
Andrew, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, so I think I understood the question to be, the rental rates related to the apartments themselves. Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Yes, have we?
I'm sorry?
It's changed from what it originally was started off to be. With Deidre, when she first presented Space to Create and what it was supposed to allow, and the creative aspects of being modified. So at this point, I don't know where we are.
Yeah, a fair question. So the project will be 100% restricted to households earning less than 80% of the area median income and as low as 30% of area median income. So without getting really into the weeds there, we'll have households that are units that are restricted at 30, 40, 50, 60, and 80%. And basically what that means is we're offering those different stratifications of affordability, same kind of apartment, same 1 bedroom, same 2 bedroom, but what those households earn will be lower for some households than others. And then the rents for those households earning less money will be set to a lower level. Those rents are moving around every year. They're set by HUD based on the income levels they survey in the entire United States. We've actually seen the rental allowable limits go down a little bit from 2019 to 2020, and those move around each year. The affordability level, so those percentages don't move. Those are set in stone for us. Those are commitments we've made. The rents for those units will then be set each year for what the actual area median income is, and that's one of the federal regulations we work within. And then the rents for those households will be adjusted. So we see a fair amount of stability year to year. We don't see a lot of rental growth. So households don't see rent spikes typically because, on average, the incomes for any area don't, tend to spike up or down year to year. So I hope that's helpful. It's, not knowing exactly what rates you looked at when it was first presented. I'm certain that there has been some change, but there will be change even from when we close and complete construction, 12 months from now, when we're actually leasing up and, call it late 21, early 22, those rents will be set by HUD for that time period. So it's always a bit of a moving target, but I think the takeaway I would stress is that they will always be affordable and restricted to those income bands that we've committed to for 100% of the units.
And Andrew, HUD usually is targeting that 30% of income, right? In terms of, isn't that generally give or take the target, which Tammy might help Tammy kind of picture dollars.
That's a really great point. So those rental levels are targeted to be no more than 30% of whatever a household is earning at each of those income bands. So to make math easy, if the affordability level was $100,000 for 60% household, I'm just making up a number, then that household would not be expected to spend more than $30,000 a year. So if it's $50,000, then it's not more than $15,000 they would spend on housing each year. So then the rent per month would be that divided by 12. And then there's also allowances for utilities, and that varies by each income level. So the numbers that HUD publishes are formulaic. It's what are the income levels, what is 30% of that income level, and that's what the rent becomes for that household. So
with this being a private-public partnership of sorts, is kind of my understanding, with you guys coming in and stepping up, matching some of what the town is doing with the town tax dollars going in to purchase the property, at least half the property, and then all the time from the staff and the amount of energy and money they've spent on educating us on Space 68. How will those very fascinating numbers, which thankfully I'm very good at math, how will those come down to supporting the maintenance on that building and allow the upkeep, or will the town have to step up to offset some of those update expenses? Because owning a commercial property, much less a rental property, that can be very challenging on property. I mean, repair and upkeep on it.
That's a great question. The short answer is that the property is set up so that the income from the rents cover expenses. So the debt on an affordable housing project is very low because the cash flow isn't there to support a lot of debt. So we have to make sure we cover our expenses, and that includes ongoing maintenance, paying for staff to do that maintenance, paying for staff to do the day-to-day operations, paying the utility bills, ensuring that we're removing snow and cutting grass and fixing pipes and replacing appliances and doing all that upkeep long term. It's a minimum of a 15-year commitment going in, but then the restrictions on the property extend beyond that. In Chaffaa, I think we're at 45 years. So we'll be in a position where we are going to be recapitalizing this long term, but it will not require additional injections of capital from the town to make sure it operates. In fact, we'll establish reserves related to the operations, to the debt service, and for capital improvements to the project as part of the expenses long term. It's a requirement of Chaffaa, it's a requirement of our lender and an investor. And at the end of the day, if those numbers fall short, ArtSpace as the developer will sign a guarantee as part of closing that says if the expenses exceed that, we will have to show up and cut a check. It's not something we like to do. We don't often see that we have to do that, but that becomes the backstop. So the short answer is we're not going to be coming back to the town to cut a check. It's going to be our responsibility to operate the project long-term, do it well. You know, I don't want to beat our own drum, but if you look at 30 plus years of history and 50 projects across more than 25 states, this is what we've been doing. And we've been doing it in affordable settings, in Colorado included. And this is just part of what we do, and ensuring that the projects operate well is a huge part of our underwriting going in.
I have one more part of my question, and then I'm done. I appreciate your thoroughness and the answers. COVID has presented a challenging time for a lot of industries, and there's been a whole bunch of bankruptcies that have occurred and people going out. And I understand you have a 30-year history, but COVID has challenged anybody's history and their ability to survive. If perchance, and I really hope it doesn't happen, but if the risk was for your company to go bankrupt, what are the consequences back on the town? I'm just looking for long-term financial consequences.
Yeah, so we always look, sadly, at the worst case scenario. You know, there's tons of lawyers that climb all over these transactions, and every one of them is looking at, well, what if everything goes haywire? So part of it is exactly as I was just describing, where there are reserves built in, there's a backstop and an expectation that if everything goes haywire, they'll come to ArtSpace first. But if we were to go bankrupt, the project would be in a position where that investor has the right to remove us and install either themselves or another qualified nonprofit developer to fulfill that role going forward. So assuming that there isn't something like, you know, beyond catastrophic to ArtSpace, but to an industry, there would be other qualified nonprofits, housing authorities, either locally or nationally, that could step into that role. In previous experience, I've actually been the developer that's taken over the role of a failed nonprofit sponsor of affordable housing projects, because those income restrictions remain. The commitment from those investors to make that project successful remain. And so there's always the need for someone to come in and operate it and to take that commitment forward. So it's not going to be something borne by the town. Ultimately, we look at this, ArtSpace looks at this as a partnership and in working with the town, but legally it's going to be our responsibility to make sure it operates and goes forward. And if it goes bad, it's going to be our responsibility to make it right, but it will not be the town's responsibility to step in, take over that operation, or to cut a check. I hope that is addressing your question.
It was great, and I appreciate it because the town has done a fabulous job of surviving through these challenging times and having good reserves, and it's encouraging to hear 7 months of backup. So obviously COVID hit us from nowhere, so I worry about future.
Yeah, and if I'm sorry, if I could, just because, you know, the question of COVID, you know, comes up in a lot of our conversations. I mean, frankly, we're on a Zoom call because COVID. So we are seeing across our portfolio, which again, it spans the country and it spans, you know, mountain, rural, urban locations. We are seeing rental collections that are, you know, easily north of 85% on the first of the month, and, you know, close to 95% by the 15th of the month across our portfolio. Of course, there's, you know, exceptions, better or worse than that around, but we're really finding that folks are prioritizing their housing, are prioritizing making their rent. And when we aren't seeing collections, we're being proactive, ensuring that folks have access to resources that can either get them current or help to pay for their rent, or get them on a path where we can get them caught up, or at least get some payment in to ensure that we can move that going forward. But we have not seen in any of our projects a need to inject capital or to shore up rents on a month-to-month basis. It's something we're watching very closely, but we've really kind of seen both our industry and you know, folks beyond finding ways to maintain their housing and to maintain their rent. Maybe not so much in frankly commercial and in some of the market rate housing scenarios, but certainly in the affordable realm, we're seeing quite a bit of focus on that and a lot of resources available to residents to make sure they stay housed.
Thanks, Andrew. That is very comprehensive. Appreciate the detailed answers. Does anybody else in the audience have questions for us or Andrew? And does anyone on council have further questions about the question at hand, which is whether or not to waive these building permit and plan check fees?
I think Preston was on the right track when he said this is putting our money where our mouth is on facilitating getting affordable housing here. You know, it's a big dollar amount and it's an ask on our staff. But I think our community keeps telling us repeatedly we need affordable places for people to live. So I think it's really important that we go ahead and do this and help facilitate that as much as we can.
Thanks.
I agree.
couldn't agree more.
Can I just second that?
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I move we waive the building permit and plan review fees associated with Ridgway Space to Create project.
Second.
Eric seconds. Any other discussion?
If I may, Mayor, we might want to set an up to amount. We did this with the library, just in case the amount goes up or something changes, and then we have some clearer direction.
So Beth, you want to do a not to exceed number on that?
Yeah, not to exceed. I mean, I don't know where, before I say that, like, do we want to just put it at the number that they're proposing to us now? And then if that changes, then Art Space is on the hook for that small chunk? If I just say 32, is that okay with everybody?
32 is what I was going to suggest.
Okay. So I move to waive the building permit and plan review fees up to $32,000 for fees associated with Ridgway Space to Create project.
And I'll resecond it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Amended motion's been made and seconded. Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Cheek?
Aye. Aye.
Councilmember Cheek?
Aye.
Thank you. Grambly?
Aye.
Lakin?
Aye.
Meyer?
Aye.
Skylar?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you all so very, very much for this support tonight and for all your support up to this point and going forward. And I will very much look forward to honoring my commitment that I made to Mayor Deidre that there's a karaoke event in our future, which I will commit to doing non-COVID and in person, celebrating a grand opening. So thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it.
Can't wait. Thanks, Andrew.
Significant commitment.
Thanks
Good
for being.
evening. Take care.
Good night.
Right.
It's this long project of Space to Create. I still am just extremely excited about it, and it keeps getting closer. All right, that takes us to item number 15. Yeah, review and action on revocable permit for use of town property related to Ridgway Space to Create. I believe this is a slight encroachment permit.
Yeah, so this is a revocable encroachment permit that requires town council approval, and it is fairly minimal and a little bit unique. So there's a draft encroachment permit available for you, but I just wanted to share these maps here. So this is the building. It's the foundation plan, so it's a little funky. North Laura Street is here on the left side of your screen, and Clinton Street is on the bottom of the screen. So the building is going to have these footers that I can't explain in a ton of detail, but if we zoom way in, they are going to be popping out underground, a couple of feet underground, just not even a foot, I believe. And this is going to happen in 3 areas. So a little bit unique in our historic business district, You can build lot line to lot line, but their footers require a little extra space. So this is going to be under the sidewalk, but it will be into town property. So that is the first part. And then the second part is on this second page, and the red isn't very bold, but this is a second floor balcony that will be, I think if you've seen the renderings, it kind of pops out. It has, it's the main entry to the community space underneath here. And then on the top, there's a balcony for the second floor residents. So there is a small overhang here, appears to be about 7 feet by 24, 25 feet wide that will pop out over the sidewalk. You'll be able to walk under it and it's totally clear. So the encroachment permit that is for your review tonight covers these couple of items, as well as all the legal coverage for the town in terms of, that building and that property being on town property.
Thank you, Shay. Understanding that balcony is over the entry for the community space is super helpful.
Yeah, I realized just now I probably should have included like a perspective view or something of the of the buildings.
But we do get to keep the gold that's excavated on those footers on our.
It's not drafted into the permit, but upon your direction.
Just the 2 feet worth, yeah.
So this is the presentation from the last Space to Create meeting that we had, a project update. And this is that little balcony, that second floor thing on Clinton Street that is hanging over the street.
Thanks, Shay. That's helpful. Okay, what's council? What's your feeling on this? Anybody have questions or comments?
Just, it seems pretty straightforward. I don't have any reason to think that we shouldn't do it.
I would agree.
Yep.
Well, I'll move to approve the revocable encroachment permit for use of town right of way for art space in the Space to Create project and to waive the $75 fee.
I'll second that.
All right, any motions made and seconded? Any other questions? I mean, any other discussion, sorry. Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilors Cheek.
Aye.
Grambly.
Aye.
Lakin.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. All righty, that takes us to item number 16, subdivision improvements and lien agreement for replat of blocks 2 and 8, Alley A of the River Park Ridgway Business Filing, Park Filing 1. Shay.
Yes. So this is a request to enter into a subdivision improvements agreement. So a quick background on this. This replat was approved in 2018 and has taken quite some time to do fairly minimal infrastructure work, but there's been a number of kind of roadblocks and complications that have caused that. Before we record any final plats, we have the option to enter into a subdivision improvements agreement, which basically says, sure, we'll give you saleable pieces of property so you can kind of move on, maybe sell a piece of property or two, but we want a written agreement, written binding agreement and a bond that ensures that we are going to get, that you're going to finish all of the work that you said you would do in the first place. So that's what this is. A couple things to note, it's pretty minimal. On the list is removing some some now non-used pedestals for communication and pulling some communication line down the alley. Both of those projects, I believe, have already been completed. They were just completed in the last week. And then what is left is replacing an ADA ramp and a little piece of sidewalk on North Railroad that was torn up to install some utilities. It is formed, it is just not poured yet. And then finishing the as-built drawings. And I received a draft of those, I think yesterday. So we're on track to get this finished. I believe a contractor is already on board for that little ramp, but I think they'll only do it as part of a leftover pour, just because it's such a small amount. So they're just kind of waiting for that. We do have the signed agreement from the owner, as well as a $5,000 bond to complete this work. And then I believe I saw Scott on the call today. So not sure if he has anything to add, but I think that is a basic overview.
Great, thanks, Shay. Before I see if Scott wants to weigh in, does anybody on council have questions or comments?
I am here. I don't, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Oh, okay. That was a complete description of it. Yeah. Any questions, I'd be willing to field those.
Great, thanks. Council? Looks like everybody's pretty okay with it. I'm not seeing any questions. Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Okay, someone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the subdivision improvements agreement for the replat of blocks 2, 8, and Alley A of the River Park Ridgway Business Park, filing 1 as presented.
Second.
Kevin seconds. And unless there's any other discussion, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Cheek,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
He stepped away for a second. It's unanimous without him, so I assume. Preston, do we need to wait? Preston or Bo, do we need to wait till he comes back?
I don't believe so, Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We can just show that he didn't vote.
Okay. He stepped away if we didn't vote on this one. Thanks. That's unanimous vote by the folks present. And was it Scott? That's all we need.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hopefully it'll be done in a week or two.
Great.
Thanks.
Great. I'll try and get that signed for you tomorrow or the next day.
Excellent.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Then that takes us to number 17. Item number 17, discussion and direction on relocation of the old Ridgway jail located behind the old Ridgway firehouse. Preston.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So staff is looking for some direction on how to proceed with Mr. Patrick O'Leary's very kind offer to have the old Ridgway jail relocated on a town property. Met with Mr. O'Leary a few weeks back now, I believe it was. Really great meeting, got a tour of the firehouse property and the jail. It was really cool. And he pretty much expressed a desire to make the structure available to the town first before exploring other relocation options. And I'm of the understanding that the Uray County Ranch History Museum has also expressed interest in the jail in some sort. And I believe, well, we do have Mr. O'Leary here, and then Ms. Joan Chismeyer, I believe, is on too, to represent the Ranch History Museum and talk to their potential interests. So for now, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, but I'll unmute Mr. O'Leary and Ms. Joan Chismeyer.
Yeah, so Preston's made a good summary there. Just first off, does anybody on council have questions for staff about this? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and let Patrick give us a little background. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you very much. Would you prefer that I not be on video?
No, it's fine.
Speaking? Okay,
No,
great. Thank you. And thank you, Preston, for making, creating the opportunity for me to speak to council this evening. Warm welcome to all council members and staff members. I see many friends on this Zoom call. Unlike the earlier speaker, Andrew, this is my 4th Zoom call of the day. And I've been looking forward to having the opportunity to follow up on and confirm my offer that I had made, a proffer that I had made back in December of last year in the first of our planning commission meetings on the old firehouse project and our requested variances. And that was that I was in need of finding a new location for the jail if I was to meet the residential parking requirements with the project. And the jail represents 2 parking spaces, which we can kind of look at it in either as supportive workforce housing parking, because we do have workforce housing units in the project, and also 3 condominiums. And so we will meet the residential requirement, but that does bring forward the issue of the relocation of the jail. So the proffer that I did make, I wanted to follow up on here, and that was that I was willing to donate and relocate the jail. I would characterize it as soup to nuts, and place it in a location of the town's preference if the town has an interest in the receiving of the donation. And if you guys see a fit in one of the Ridgway parks for the jail. In recent months, Joan Chismeyer did approach me, and I mentioned that I had made this proffer and that I felt duty bound and obligated to come back to the town of Ridgway and see if they would appreciate having the donated structure. It's going to be a bear to move. Vogie's House Moving Services, though, assures me 100% that it can and will be done. I am more than willing to bring it to its new resting place so that it has a more prominent place in our town and people can experience it. We will do a complete photographic archiving of the building so that we know exactly how it sits today. And we would work with whoever the recipient is to try to recreate it and probably put some new glass in the windows if that's preferred. But, you know, I've had so many people, I enjoy seeing the jail. It's one of the best parts of owning that property is taking people to see the jail. And I noticed that my colleague on the board of Sherbino, Sue Hush, is here. And when she was over to take a look for the very first time at my project about a year ago, she said, I got a favor to ask of you. Would you mind showing me the jail? I've never seen it. I don't know how long Sue has been here, probably almost 2 decades now, decade and a half for sure. I meant what I said last December. And so I was appreciative, Preston, that you put us on the agenda so we could bring this forward and get some direction from the town. You know, I'll perhaps turn it back to you to see if there is interest.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I guess just for initial discussion, I'll mention that it was basically until this afternoon that personally I was thinking that the town probably really didn't have a place for it, and that the Ranch History Museum would be a good home. But I have to point out that at our discussion down at the Heritage Park, what we're calling Heritage Park and has been called Heritage Park for a while, down where the Railroad Museum used to be, and the item that was on the agenda earlier tonight. And I got to give Beth credit because she came up with the idea. She said, wow, we still want to have some bit of Ridgway heritage down here since the railroad cars have gone away. What about maybe relocating the jail here? So I think that's an idea that's only a few hours old, but it's a very interesting option that hadn't occurred to me before. And I don't want to disappoint Joan too much. I think it's not necessarily going to be decided here and now tonight, but my suggestion would be that we have a little discussion here and then direct staff to explore the option further, have maybe a little discussion with Joan as well, and then bring back to council in a month or two sort of the pros and cons of the options at hand. So I just felt like it was really worth mentioning. Beth, you want to add anything?
No, I think, you know, as a gateway to town, it's wonderful that the name was already Heritage Park. And as I looked through the master plan, we were really emphasizing all of the things that make Ridgway Ridgway. And lacking the railroad car that was there, the jail may be a really cool piece to help draw people in and ask them to be there. I don't know what your timing is on having an answer, Patrick, and in terms of our discussions with the chamber about what's going to happen at Heritage Park, but it was a spur of the moment idea, but a couple hours later, I still like it.
Not to take too much time, but what is the history of the jail? I've never seen it. I don't know anything about the history of the actual jail itself. It wasn't part of the True Grit movie or anything, right? This was the actual Ridgway.
Terry, it's been resting in the place that it sits on the Michael McCullough Alley, right on the other side of the cinder block building that CenturyLink owns and has the tower. And, you know, that's partly why it feels so hidden. And it does face the alley. And it was built after the town of Ridgway acquired the old stone house, and it became the old stone town hall, which was, you know, which is now known as the old firehouse. And after they came in 1889, I believe, and acquired the property when it was 7 or 8 years old, and they occupied it for almost 90 years. And in one form or another, the town used that structure, the firehouse. The jail was built in 1909 by the town directly behind the alley. So that is it's a long history, 111 years it's been sitting in place. I've had a few people tell me that it's almost sacrilegious to move it, but I want it to, you know, be able to be enjoyed by our broader population, as well as the tourists that come to our town, to be able to see it. And it's not just happenstance that Pat or Marty or one of us is in Lucy's garden, and you know, we always say, please come on back. This is the greatest thing. You got to see it.
Clearly, it has heritage to it.
That's it.
Yeah. I wonder if symbolically, is there any issue with it being the first in the Gateway Park, so to speak? And is it, say we're a law and order town or something like that? Is there any sensitivity along those lines?
Oh gosh.
Put your mask on or go visit the park.
Oh my God, Terry.
Since I was told that the town used that jail up until the early 60s, I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen it in print anywhere. When federal regulations came in, John's shaking his head. There may be a few people that drive by and say, you know what? I spent a night in that jail.
That's right. Yeah.
All I know is I like to remind people that what we call the firehouse was never a firehouse other than in the movie True Grit. As Pat says, it was the town hall for a while, for quite a long time. And sadly, after it stopped being the town hall, it must have been sold for, I would imagine it was sold just because of the town's declining population and need for funds at some point. But I remember when I first moved here in 82, and got on planning commission shortly thereafter in the mid 80s, we met, and the town council met in a little single wide trailer that sat in the middle of what's now Lucy's garden. And that was town hall, and it had feral cats under it. And it was quite the piece of Ridgway history. So the firehouse is, the cupola on it that makes it look so cool was built by the crew that came to film True Grit. And it was a town hall for many years, but it was never really the firehouse other than in the movie. The jail, you ought to go by and get a tour before it moves for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to go see it. I didn't even know it existed, so.
I'd be happy to do that.
We'll lock you up for a few hours.
We'll pick a really cold day too, Terry.
Yeah, I deserve all that, so that's fine.
So anyway, what does the rest of council feel about the things that we've discussed? The thoughts. How do you want to proceed?
Well, I was with you, John. I mean, my first thought when I saw this on the agenda was that, well, yeah, let's just put it at the Ranch History Museum. It seems like the best.
Oop, you froze.
Yeah.
Eric, can you hear us?
I think I know where he was going with that, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a little chance to weigh in on that, whether that's something that, they think would fit with their images.
Eric, you froze for about 20 seconds. So we didn't hear.
So I was just saying, maybe we should get somebody to weigh, it would be nice to have the chamber weigh in on this as well.
Mhm.
In terms of the plan. And then I guess the other thing is to have Shay or the planning commission look at that master plan that we created for Heritage Park and see how that could potentially be worked into that as well. So I think it could go either place.
Yep.
Totally.
Well, and knowing that Joan is on this call just for this very subject, I want to give you a chance to give your 2 cents, make your pitch, however you want to put it. Having heard what we said and Patrick's take on it, what do you have to think? What do you have to say?
Well, thanks for letting me be a part of this tonight too.
Of course.
With regard to the jailhouse, it's a fascinating place. It really is. You'll like it, Terry. But it is heavier than all get out. It is going to be a challenge to be moved. And it's something that we would be interested in doing. One thing that's kind of neat about it, since you haven't seen it yet, Terry, the inside has 2 cells, 2 jail cells. There's a toilet on one side that I can remember, maybe on the other side as well. But all of the bars and such are made out of the old railroad ties, or actually not ties, but the old the rails, the railroad rails, the narrow gauge rails. And so one thing that was going to be kind of neat is to have it right next to the now existing track that the Railroad Museum has put on part of our leased parcel, the 9.5 acres just due east of the library. So what we would be doing is we'd be placing that just inside the track, just behind or the north, just north of our planned location for the museum. So it'd be right behind the museum and right next to the track. So it would really kind of play off nicely with the existing track that's being utilized right now, and then seeing the old rail and how it was used earlier in Ridgway's history.
Pretty resourceful.
Yeah, that's
always around here.
Well, I personally love that we've got a couple of great options, and my suggestion would be that we direct staff to do a little evaluation of the options, especially since the option of moving it to Heritage Park is so brand new. We need to kind of evaluate the dimensions of the structure and look at it on the map of of Heritage Park and see if there's actually a place where it would fit within the existing master plan documents. And then have staff bring it back to us, like I said, another month or two to kind of weigh the pros and cons. I'd be happy with either location, obviously.
Yeah. And Deidre, Hillary had mentioned that there had been a couple of edits to the plan since the version we had, so she might be a great contact to kind of look at how that works with the boxcar being gone that was in those plans too.
Yeah, and
Okay, yeah, I'll check in with her.
Because she was part of our conversation that we had.
and I can't remember which one of you said it makes sense to have chamber weigh in. Was that you, Eric?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good idea. Have Hillary and or Tim or someone else on the board or the whole board just give us their take on the idea. You know, Patrick, I don't think there's a rush on this, but I know you're hoping to get under construction next year.
Yes.
Is that right?
I'll speak because Beth did ask about, she didn't know what my timing was. So let me address that directly. When you say that, you know, it's really good to have the option, I completely agree to have the option with respect to Uray County Ranch History Museum. Because it's not a pressure packed decision for you. They're both good options. So if you guys want to, continue to discuss it and think through it in November and December, perhaps render a decision as early as January, I would be comfortable with that. I know that Joan is anxious to try to assist me in providing some form of grant monies and possible tax credits. So, it would be good to know sooner than later because those all operate on a cycle. Our intent is to have our plans completed in the May timeframe, but we would be interacting with Town of Ridgway and the planning staff throughout both the first quarter and the second quarter, bringing forward our plans at the end of schematics, at the end of design development, at the end of construction drawings, so that by the time we're going in to request a permit, it should be pretty facile. But the jail needs to move as soon as the weather is good in the spring for supporting the machinery that's going to be necessary. And it wants to get lifted and moved out of the way so that it's not encumbering the foundational work that has to take place up front for the old stone house walls that are, I believe, going to be 129 years old next year. So, but the time frame that you laid out for decision making, a couple of months, perhaps render a decision in January or even in December if it's at all possible, I think would be helpful to both myself and to Joan. But like I say, I wanted to offer it to the Town of Ridgway first. It's part of our history and part of our heritage. There's that word again. So that would be acceptable to us if you can work within that time frame.
Great, thanks. That's helpful to know that time frame, and I think that's workable. Preston and or Shay, do you guys have thoughts on the direction I'm suggesting?
No, I think you've outlined some pretty clear direction. We can have a conversation with the chamber and continue to evaluate it and see what the costs on our end would be to get that moved to that site. And yeah, I see it as completely feasible to do the work and circle around in December, perhaps January, so that Mr. O'Leary gets his answer sooner rather than later. Shay, do you have anything?
No, nothing for me. Happy to help look at options and thanks for the opportunity. I love historic preservation stuff, so thanks for not just knocking it over, because that's an option for you as well. And
no way.
A lot of people would be sad.
Would never happen.
Great.
Very generous, Patrick. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Be well, y'all. Thanks for considering it.
Yeah, Patrick, I want to also add to other comments made just now, how much we appreciate your role in the Town of Ridgway's evolution and your heart and soul that you put into this town. We appreciate it so much. I personally know I've seen it firsthand for many years now, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you, and we'll try and have a plan formulated as soon as we can.
And I would like to also say thank you for doing the preservation of the historic building, because it just speaks to our heritage here, and it would be a real shame to lose that. So thank you very much for that. That energy that you're putting into this. Really do appreciate that very much.
Can somebody unmute Patrick again? Oh, there you go.
Thanks to both of you, and right back at all of you, because this is a remarkable community to live in, and I am honored to just even be able to participate, truly. And so thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. All right, I think we've gone as far as we can on that one for now. Thank you, staff, for taking that on. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. And we'll move on to item number 18, which is presentation of the draft 2021 fiscal year budget. Pam. Pam and Preston.
Yeah, real quick, Mayor, can you all see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so before I turn it over to Pam to kind of lead us through this work session, just want to take a second and brought up this slide that kind of depicts the remaining budget adoption timeline. This should look a little familiar because it was, well, it's been updated, but it was presented at the budget retreat last month. So the purpose of tonight's work session is really to follow up on and highlight a variety of items that were discussed at the budget retreat last month. And again, Pam will take us through all this. Next week on the 19th, which is Thursday, we have a budget workshop scheduled. It'll be very similar work session type setting, but we'll have a much more robust and comprehensive presentation summarizing the proposed budget, much like we did at the retreat last month. And there's some other items on that agenda. Council will also review and provide direction on council initiatives, the funding requests that have come in. And then we'll also have a discussion on the draft 2021 strategic plan for you all to discuss and provide direction on in advance of the December 9th meeting, which is when the adoption of the 2021 fiscal year budget is slated for, in addition to the capital projects plan and the 2021 strategic plan. So, and also at that meeting, you all will approve a resolution certifying the mill levy. So just wanted to kind of just do an overview of the remaining budget timeline. With that, I'll turn it over to Pam.
So the council has documents in the packet, the same documents that were presented at the workshop. They were updated after the meeting. I just wanted to go over a few things that were placed into the budget or those documents. The first is that we discussed at the meeting purchasing a hydrovac excavator vacuum truck, and those funds were split between water and sewer. And since that meeting, staff has looked into the cost of purchasing that and realized that we would need more funds than what we had originally. So we've added a three-way split with the streets. So that has been placed into the budget and also into the 5-year capital improvement plan. The reason that the staff is asking for that, we discussed this before, was the need to have that truck or that piece of equipment. Because of all the fiber that's been placed into the streets, they're very concerned about any manual digging and excavation in the streets and any damage to those lines. The streets will use that truck for cleaning culverts and storm drains, those types of things. Another piece that was placed into the budget is not in the 5-year plan, but it is included on that list of expenditures. That's called the line item location of expenditures. That was not in that document when you looked at it last time, was replacing the 2-inch PVR bypass lines with 3-inch lines. That's within the water fund. And that's an additional 15,000 that was put into that, that particular line item. So what I've done, and I thought we might look at this evening, is in the capital improvement plans, in the 5-year plans, I highlighted, you probably have seen this, 3 lines in green based on the discussions that we had at that workshop. So I thought maybe council might want to look at this as it's relevant to if they want to expend any monies for capital improvements this year. The first one is the Dennis Weaver Memorial Park vault restroom facility. At the workshop, we were talking about the line item at that time was showing 125,000, and staff was directed to look into that. And I did contact a company, and it looks like we could probably accomplish that for close to 60,000, including staff time with heavy equipment. The other things that I highlighted, which we talked about at the meeting, was the Lena Street construction. That at the meeting we talked about the construction time frame of that street would be a 40% town and 60% developer cost of. I think we originally had 650,000, I believe, and then Joanne at the meeting said we should increase that to 775, which I've done. And then after the meeting, she did speak to me about the fact that there would be engineering and surveying. So I did add a line item there, and that dollar amount of 75 was based on what she had projected. So I've placed that in there to see if council might want to consider appropriating funds for that engineering and surveying perhaps next year, and then maybe setting some funds aside so we can start saving for that project, because that would be, if it comes in at that amount, $310,000 to the town. And I'm sorry, Joanne, I don't remember the time frame that you said that construction would probably happen, but I thought you said 2020. I mean, excuse me, 22.
Correct. I think that would be the soonest I think we'd be ready for that. The engineering and surveying would need to happen right before the projects would go to construction. So maybe the thing to do would be to put away that money and a little bit more to start to build the fund.
I'm sorry, Joanne, I didn't hear the time frame. What time
I think
frame?
it's up to council when we want to try to do it, but I think the soonest I think we'd be ready would be 2022.
Right, okay. So this is not a direction you have to follow at this point, but I thought you might want to have this discussion about capital improvements. If we look at our ending fund balance in the general fund right now, we may have, if we wanted to keep our ending fund balance about 700,000, we might have 250,000 approximately the council might want to look at either allocating to a project or setting some funds aside for this project. Because 2022 is on us really quickly, and $310,000 would be a lot for us.
Yep. So are you saying you think that's something we need to decide tonight?
No, you don't need to, but it would be helpful for us in preparing for the workshop. But you do not have to decide that tonight.
Okay. Well, what's the feeling of council on?
Pam, what was that? You said we had 200 and some to keep above that reserve amount we were talking about?
Yes, where the budget is now.
Yeah.
The ending where the ending fund balance is falling now, and keeping your reserves around that figure. Yes, about 250.
Okay.
Again, you don't have to discuss it tonight. We can discuss it at the next meeting.
So the 310,000 you're talking about, we would have to come up with, is that specifically for the construction, or does that include the engineering and survey as well?
That is just the construction. The engineering and survey is, the town's portion of that would be 30,000.
Okay.
So we would need to budget the full 75, but then we would have a reimbursement from Lena Street Commons, which would come in as a revenue in the same budget year.
Sure. Okay. I think we ought to start putting some money away for this. Just, it's a big chunk of change and it's coming up pretty quick.
But it's definitely a key 2-block section of downtown that will be just awesome to get done. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any good rationale that some of the cost of this street construction could come out of either the water or the sewer fund?
Don't see how we could do that, but maybe Joanne might have an idea.
Yeah. It was a wild idea. I just thought I'd ask.
sounded like
Joanne?
Ken was going to say something.
I
You have
think
thoughts?
we've kind of done the water and sewer part.
Okay.
I can think about it a little bit more.
Just a thought. But I agree with Russ. I think we need to start setting some money aside.
I'm guessing there's consensus on that point.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to just decide on a number and we can maybe all mull that over between now and next Thursday. Is that what we're-
Yeah, we can come back to you with some more firm numbers of where we're thinking that ending fund balance is going to come in at. I know council wants to talk at that meeting about council initiatives. So that'll also give us, that number may change also. And so the ending fund balance might change there. So just, knowing that you want to look at that is helpful for us to come back with those numbers for you.
So I guess the thought that I'll throw out is that, having looked at the budget today, is that this budget is probably one of, in terms of revenue versus expenditures, maybe one of the most conservative budgets I think you guys have presented to us over the years I've been on council. Pretty significant decrease over this year, over comparing this year to 2021 in terms of revenue. So I think we could be fairly safe in pulling some money out of that end fund balance and still probably end up at the end of the year being okay, the way our budgets have traditionally run. Would you agree, John?
Yep.
That's what we're hoping to.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there are no other changes to this document, or these documents that you've seen since our workshop meeting. If you have any questions, there are some small numbers that changed in the estimated year end. I don't think it's necessary for us to discuss them unless you would like me to tell you where those changes happened. But you know, what I do as I work with the budget is I really try to get as close as I can to that year end. So as time is moving, as we're getting closer to the year end and we're having expenditures, I adjust numbers and tweak things. Most of it's not significant, but that's why that number changes. So if you'd like, I can go back in and tell you where those changes happened.
I have one quick question, Pam. And it's probably a minor thing, but in the street wages, the personnel costs are significantly down from both the 220 adopted budget as well as the projected 2020 year end. I'm just wondering why that is. Just
yeah. So, well, two things. One, there was a reallocation of where we had an employee allocated splitting through funds, and we've allocated it just to one fund. And then we have an employee, the main employee in the streets department has reduced his weekly hours.
okay. It is some of that employee that got reallocated. Is that what is showing in the increase in
the parks?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have items they want Pam to give us more detail on tonight? Let's see, I see Tammy's got her hand up. You got a question about this, Tammy?
Yes, guys, as you talk about, and Eric, especially you bringing it up, the idea of reallocating money from the water sewer fund. If you remember those of us in the commercial property side and our incredible challenges of meeting the new water bill rates and being told that none of that enterprise fund could come from outside resources or be spent in other places, and then finding out after the fact that 10% of the enterprise fund could come from any other source. I would really like if there's extra money in our budget at the end to maybe reallocate some of those funds towards the enterprise fund for the infrastructure costs we need for our increases and improvements in our water and sewer, for the increased amount of homes and sites we're going to have here. Because in talking about long-term challenges with Chase and the increased number of houses and living we're going to have in the town, we know we have to make those improvements. And as a business owner, knowing the impact of those increases, please think about using some of those funds, and legally you can put up to 10% in the enterprise fund from outside sources so that we don't have to incur another water and sewer increase. Thank you.
10% of enterprise, my understanding, Bo or Preston, can you clarify? Because I didn't think that was true, and I didn't think we could do that.
It's Preston. I'm so sorry to say, but I had my ear like 3 inches from the speaker, and I was having a hard time following what the question really was.
Yeah, Tammy, for some reason, it's hard for us. You're coming through really muffled. It's hard to understand.
Okay.
So you
I
said.
live on Log Hill.
Pardon me?
So I live on Log Hill, so my internet is challenging, so I apologize.
It's not an internet issue, it's a microphone issue. I don't know if you're on a headset or, it's not that you're breaking up, it's just that you're muffled. It's like you're talking through a mask or something.
Okay, is that better?
Much better.
Yeah, that's better.
There you go.
All right, good. Sorry, I did have earplugs in because my husband was not remotely interested in listening to this meeting. So whenever we were, as a business community, fighting the water increases, because you guys talked about not having to do major amounts of infrastructure improvements, talking with Chase about the future new subdivisions and housing we're going to have in the town and the challenges we're going to face, not just from the water coming in, but the sewer improvements. I did research and found out, actually through one of our county commissioners, that up to 10% of an enterprise fund can come from an outside source. So those of you that were on town council back then, I had asked that option about some of the marijuana sales tax going towards the enterprise fund. And I was told by Jen Coates at the time that absolutely no outside funds could come into an enterprise fund. It had to generate itself. So I researched, and up to 10% could come from an outside in, and it's that way in multiple states. So I'd like to look at any imbalance, which thank you so much for being fiscally conservative in your budgeting, but rather than, not that you're spending it willy-nilly, but as you're putting money away for capital improvements, please think about doing that for our sewer and water infrastructure, so we don't have to incur the egregious amounts of water rate increases that we have in the past. Is that more clear?
Yeah, Preston or Bo or Pam, is that true about the 10% outside source?
I do not know the answer to that. I would have to
So,
look into it.
I think that 10% is grant funding, if you will. So that can come from either state grant funding or local grants with respect to that 10% allocation.
I would be very interested in us verifying that, just because I was told something different. And it'd be good to find that out.
And then that also gets into a much larger discussion about the philosophy, if that were in fact true, which we would need to verify, about whether our water and sewer funds should be self-supporting, which is what this council really stood strong on in that water rate discussion, was that we can't have residents subsidizing businesses and businesses subsidizing residents. We really tried to weigh those costs of water. So there's a huge philosophical discussion if in fact we find out that there's other ways to put money into a water fund. We would be taking other tax funds to subsidize water usage in a community that is high desert. So that's a huge other discussion.
Not to totally get into waylay us, but also think about the fact that today's generation is paying for sins of the past, of people not putting away money or charging appropriate amounts in the past. So I just want to think through that.
I think
Okay.
something to,
I don't want to get into water rate reparations.
I think just something to note here too is the difference between water usage fees and tap fees. I know I have a lot of conversations trying to clarify those and explain those, that the cost of using water and like the monthly bills for water really cover the, well, try to cover, attempt to get close to covering the cost of producing that water, whereas tap fees for new water and sewer taps are in that enterprise fund, and those go to more of the capital projects and upkeep. So maybe, I don't know if that's, but that seemed important to just kind of clarify here, and I might miss something there if Bo or Preston wants to clarify, but important to think.
That's correct. And I guess I would just say, Tammy, I appreciate your comments. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole here, but for my part, I would say that the council, whether you think so or not, the council was really agonized over the water rate discussion last year and did everything we could to try and come up with a solution that was as equitable as we possibly could. We ended up making tweaks at the end that I feel like should have made a noticeable difference in people's water bills, not to the degree you might want, but as much as we could do and still have the water fees pay for the cost of producing water, as Shay mentioned. And the other thing I'd say is I think what I'm hearing from you is that you want us to continue to do everything we can to keep from having to pass on increased fees to existing water users if we don't have to. And I think you can count on us doing that. That's not what we try and do. We don't try and pass on fees that we don't have to pass on. So we'd like development to pay its own way. We've always had that philosophy in the town of Ridgway. And I think you can be assured that that will continue to be our goal. As long as I'm involved, that's for sure. So appreciate your comments. I think we can do some research on that 10% number and figure out whether there maybe is something we haven't been aware of, but you know, I guess I would just say I don't think we're going to be in making another huge increase to water rates anytime soon, because we know how painful that was. And
But we will, as you mentioned, Tammy, continue to look at it incrementally in order to avoid that huge hit that you guys took. And we do feel that that was hard. But we did have to get back to a sustainable point. Sorry to interrupt, Mayor. It's
that's okay. That's right. So to get us back on track here, we've got the draft budget in front of us. Preston, Bo, remind me, does this require a motion, or is it just a formal presentation to council?
Yeah, just another forum to present the budget to you and follow up on some budget items. There's no action slated for tonight, although, you know, we've already gotten a little bit of direction, and maybe we'll get a little bit more as Pam continues to lead us through this. So yeah, no action or formal motion needed.
Okay, I believe the last thing I was saying was asking if anybody on council wanted Pam to go deeper into the numbers at all beyond the questions that Eric had. And I don't know if Pam, if you had anything else you wanted. It sounded like the last thing you said is you were just open to going into more detail if anybody wanted you to. And is that correct?
That's correct. There really weren't any changes other than what I presented to you from your workshop, other than a few small tweaks in the estimated year end for 2020 based on at the time we make expenditures, so that I can get that number as close as possible to the time that we adopt the budget. I don't have anything else I can share with you that's new, but if you have any kind of questions at all, I hope I can answer them now. And if not, I can find those answers before we go to the workshop.
Okay, so anybody else have specific questions for Pam on the budget?
Not tonight.
Okay.
And real quick, Mayor, I should have said this before, but Tammy, yeah, happy to follow up or at least confirm the 10% item. I think Bo's assessment was probably the right answer, but we'll verify that.
Great, thank you.
What time is the workshop on Thursday?
5:30?
5:30.
Yep.
Okay, it sounds like we're done on this item.
That's up to you all.
Asking council, I think everybody's done on this one. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Pam, for your very efficient and thorough work as usual. And we'll delve in further next week. So that takes us to, let's see, item number 19, introduction of ordinance related to medical and retail marijuana licensing. Preston.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So real quick, this one's pretty straightforward. This ordinance would add a supplemental regulation to subsection 8-4-2 that would require medical marijuana and retail marijuana license holders to put their license to use within 90 days of the issuance date, or else the license would be forfeited and revert to the town. The ordinance as written grants the town clerk the authority to effectuate the forfeiture and return any unused licenses. And this would apply to all existing, new, or renewed medical or retail marijuana licenses that have been or will be issued by the town. Again, just any and all licenses would be subject to the ordinance. So happy to answer any questions.
Great. So that the idea behind this is to keep any of our very limited medical or retail marijuana licenses from being purchased and just sat on and kept out of circulation for whatever reason. It would require that anyone who buys a medical or retail marijuana license sit into use within 90 days or forfeits it. So the idea is that we make sure we don't have a license just sitting when there are people that might like to use it.
So does this take effect as each license is renewed, or does it just take effect starting now? If it's not used in 90 days, it refers to town?
It would.
It's existing.
Say again.
It's existing.
Existing, right. So as these licenses come in for renewal, well,
No, the way
all of a
it's
sudden I'm
written, we had talked about it being on like the yearly cycle, and the way it's written, it sounds like if you have a license, you need to use it in 90 days. That's why I asked.
right. No, yeah, that's a really great question. Bo, you might
So,
need to go ahead.
If I may, it would be upon renewal. I think that being said, the goal is that we could get all existing license holders to enact their license, but our only enforcement mechanism would be within renewal.
Okay.
So I'm all for this ordinance. My only concern is I wonder, particularly for somebody coming in with a new license, is that 90 days too short a period of time to get a business up and running?
Well, then, I guess to piggyback on that, if we can only enforce it on renewal, if we issue a new license and it takes them 120 days to start.
No, I'm sorry. That 90 days would apply to a new license. But for those that are existing, I think that we're preempted from enforcing that 90-day provision.
Okay.
But if one of the existing licenses that is not currently being used comes in for renewal and they don't use it within 90 days of that renewal period, they lose it, correct?
In which
Yeah, that's
case, they've
correct.
already got an established business, so that your concern wouldn't apply.
In that case, no, it wouldn't, but.
No, but I think there's at least one license out there that is held but not being used.
Right.
And then it comes up for renewal, they're going to be put on notice that they either have to use it or they're going to give it up after 90 days.
Right, but what Eric's saying is 90 days long enough if we have a new.
That's a separate question, right?
Yeah.
I can address that probably. Based on the licensing requirements from the state, and before they approve a license, everything has to be in place. I'm almost positive, like they go into those buildings and they make sure that the security is there and the door is placed where it needs to be, and the way it's accessed from the public, and the lighting and the security for the employees. All of that has to be in place before they will issue the license.
Okay.
So I would think that they're pretty much ready to go once they get that license. So 90 days or 3 months, I would think they wouldn't have a problem.
Okay. So
but I don't know that because I've never, been within the process, but I do know that the state requires all those things prior to issuing.
Okay. So they've got some significant skin in the game before they ever even get the license.
Oh yeah, because they're paying huge fees before they get that license. So they want to be ready to go.
Right.
So they're doing all of that. They're doing all that on the promise of getting a license that must already have an open slot. I mean, otherwise that would be a huge gamble. So it must be an application for a license and then the actual receipt of the license or something. I can't imagine somebody would set up all that infrastructure and that business without having some indication that they're going to get the license.
Well, in our case, we only have 4 licenses. So if we had an open license, it would be, yes, first come, first serve, but more than likely those people are going to have all their ducks in a row before they start that process. Because if there's more than one person who's vying for that license, once it goes to the state, it's going to be pretty much, if they're doing everything according to what the state requires, the first person who gets their license in there is going to be the first one that's going to get the license through the state. Did that make sense? Was that confusing?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
it is
okay, good.
gamble on that. Anyway, so what we've got in front of us is an introduction. And then in 30 days, we would have the actual public hearing on the ordinance. And if it passes at that point, then it would be 30 days until it goes into effect. But then even then, it wouldn't have an effect until someone comes in for renewal.
And if I recall, the impetus behind this was that a good percentage of our revenues come from these license holders. So having one vacant is a opportunity cost, a huge opportunity cost that's lost for us. Wasn't that where what stimulated this?
Yep. So what's the feeling of council?
Makes sense.
It sounds great. It was just a matter of trying to clarify.
I'm in agreement with this. Maximize our licenses.
Especially since we don't have that many.
Yeah.
So someone want to make a motion?
I move to introduce ordinance number 07-2020, amending section 842 of the Ridgway Municipal Code to enact an expiration date for the use of medical and retail marijuana licenses.
Second.
Seconded by Terry. Any other discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilors Cheek,
Aye.
Brambley,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Okay, thanks very much. That brings us to item number 20, which is sadly discussion regarding resignation of Councillor Tessa Cheek. And Tessa, I have to say, your letter of resignation is really sweet. It's probably the sweetest letter of resignation I've seen. And we are going to so sorely miss you. But we have to decide how to proceed. And I would just start out by giving a little history. You know, in this case, we've already all seen a letter of interest, an email of interest from Robert Collins, who ran in the election last time and wasn't elected. What we've done in the past, although there have been times where someone has had to resign and there's been a person who ran for council the previous time, I don't believe we've ever sort of automatically appointed the person who wasn't elected in the previous election. What we typically do is advertise the opening, ask for letters of interest, and then we see who applies, and based on who applies, we make a decision. We definitely take into account that if there is someone who, or more than someone, more than one person who ran in the previous election and maybe didn't get elected, that we take that into consideration as an important fact. So, but I know Tammy reached out to me earlier this week and asked if there would be an automatic appointment of Bob to the seat because he was the only one who wasn't elected last time around. And I said to her, we had to talk about it tonight and see how we wanted to proceed, but that history-wise, we haven't typically done that. So how do you all feel?
No, I agree. You're very right. I mean, this has happened on multiple occasions, and we've almost always just put out an advertisement asking for letters of interest and see what comes in and make some decisions.
And Mayor Clark, council also has a few times, because we've dealt with this numerous times, held off until the next election because sometimes we're close to election period too. So this, if council were to appoint to fill this seat, that seat would only be held until the next election. So that would be until April.
Right.
The word is out. There's an article in the Array News in the Plain Dealer about dear Tessa's departure. It's a nice little article too. So others are probably seeing this vacancy come about.
Well, thank you, Pam, for pointing out that, yes, it has happened in the past where it's the resignation has happened close enough to the April election that it really didn't make sense to appoint somebody for a month or something. At this point, I guess what we need to discuss is, assuming we advertise the opening and ask for letters of interest. Here it is, the 11th of November. I would say we put a deadline on receipt of letters of interest, something like, what, 2 weeks from now? And then we have the opportunity to review the letters of interest before the next council meeting. I suppose, assuming, I'm thinking out loud here, but assuming we would wait until the December council meeting to appoint, we could actually give to the 1st of December, November 30th is the, and actually, I guess I have to back up a second. Tessa's formal letter of resignation is effective November 30th. She still sits on the planning commission and would attend the planning commission meeting at the end of November. So I actually don't think we can fill her seat until after the 30th of November, but we could certainly take letters of interest up until that date. What do y'all think?
I think that makes sense. I mean, you could go to December 4th, which is the Friday before the next council meeting. Probably give a little bit of extra time. And
Are you saying you would want to review those at the regular meeting in December?
Yes.
So the appointment would be, that person would sit on the council in January, and they would be on the council for 3 months
Right.
before there would be an election.
Right.
Okay.
But the way the charter reads is that we've always done this as sort of a consensus with council. The way the charter reads is actually the mayor is actually the one who does the appointment. Correct?
Are you sure about that? The mayor appoints planning commission members. I'd have to review the.
Yeah, it's the council
Yeah, I
that
think
makes.
charter, it's the council.
Yeah, it's a council decision if they're gonna, I should let Bo speak, but as the election official, I'm speaking, but.
Yeah, no, that's correct. It's a council appointment.
Okay. I don't know why I had it in my head that it was the mayor.
I mean, what's the feeling of council? I think appointing for 3 months is definitely, that's a quarter of the year. I think that's worth doing. I mean, it is. Certainly want to make it clear to anyone who's submitting a letter of interest that then they would have to run again in April. And I'm assuming anybody who submitted a letter of interest was interested in participating long-term anyway, and would be more than happy to run again in April. But 3 months is a significant chunk of the year, I think. Anybody feel any differently?
No, that seems like that's following our standard process, and it's long enough time of the year that it seems like a worthwhile process to me.
Okay. So as far as a official deadline for submittal of letters of interest, I suggested December 1st. Eric suggested December 4th is the Friday of that week. I'm not sure what they.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
The packet would be prepared on the 4th, the meeting's on the 9th, correct? It'd be helpful if we had those a few days before the packet was prepared so we could put those into the agenda packet.
I agree. I don't think there's any benefit in extending it to the 4th. I think December 1st is the logical deadline for submittals of letters of interest. What do you guys think?
Yeah, sure.
That sounds great.
All good. Again, I believe this is a kind of thing where we don't need any sort of motion. Is that correct, Bo?
Yeah, it's just direction at this point in time. So.
Okay. So staff, please put out a notice. I think we wouldn't necessarily normally post this in the paper, but I think we should post it in all our normal places, but maybe posted in the paper as well?
Oh,
Okay.
I do it in the paper.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
oh, yeah, yeah, I have a form.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anybody in the audience want to weigh in? Comments, questions? Okay, moving along, we are on to item number 21. Discussion.
Good luck to Tessa.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
It's been an honor and a joy. I'll miss you.
Thank you. It's been great. I've loved having two women on council for a change.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, so hopefully we can get a good night's sleep tonight. Item number 21, discussion regarding business support letter from Uray County Unified Command. Preston.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So hopefully you all have read the letter. It's pretty self-explanatory, and Glenn and Tanner penned this and sent this to us last week. It really essentially details some of the suggestions that were made by business owners and reps that attended the Unified Command business meetings last month. And then some of you might remember this letter really stems from direction at one of the policy group meetings several weeks back. Commissioner Batchelder asked Glenn and Tanner to put this letter together to send to the town and the city. So that's what they did. The main purpose of the business meetings last month was to discuss concerns and recommendations regarding the winter season, business support opportunities, talk about general COVID-19 information, et cetera. So that's what's before you, is this letter kind of summarizing what was heard at those meetings. And this discussion could go a variety of ways. I think now would be a good point to turn your attention to, I think it's page 2 of the town manager's report. It lists close to all, if not all, of the assistance measures that have been enacted, mainly by you all over the last 9 months, as we've been dealing with COVID, to help residents and businesses in particular. Is there more we can be doing? Yeah, maybe. So that's why we're here, to talk about what we might need to be thinking about, especially when we're getting to the 11th hour in relation to CARES Act funding. We're working really hard right now at Glenn in particular on trying to get a PPE order, a huge bulk PPE order together, and to pull the trigger on that with contributions from all 3 jurisdictions. And we're talking in the ballpark of $25,000 worth of PPE to dole out to the business community here in the next, whenever it gets here. But so I could go on, but this was really just follow up to some direction from the policy group meeting a few weeks back.
Thanks, Preston. So I know, having taken part in these calls with Tanner and Glenn and others, I know Lemmy was one who mentioned parking spaces for curbside pickup. And I'm assuming, pretty sure what she meant was like actually putting temporary signage on a couple of spaces in front of restaurants in town that would say, I don't know, something like 15 minute parking for pickup only, so that people would hopefully not use those spaces to park for longer periods of time. We haven't done that kind of thing in the past. We've had requests from restaurants around town over the years to have spaces dedicated for them that would say parking for True Grit customers only, for instance, or parking for Kate's Place customers only. And we've always said we can't do that. We can't give preference to businesses on public parking places. But I think we could consider something like this, where we could mark a couple of spaces in front of the grid, and maybe, I don't know, not sure how we do it, but a couple of places on Lena in front of Eatery 66, some places on Clinton. What's the thought of council on that one?
Yeah, I mean, that one's the one that seemed like the easiest one to think about doing something. I mean, you know, you could easily do a couple places on it. Yeah, I think that would be an easy thing to do.
I think it's in line with this council offering to allow use of parking spots for seating, and there were some concerns about alcohol and serving and liability, but if businesses are seeing pickup spots as useful to them in the winter, it's the same thing we were offering back in June
Yeah.
or earlier.
Yep.
So I think we could direct staff to pursue that in however they see best process-wise. The second bullet, promoting cooperative delivery service for restaurants and retail businesses. That's something I remember. I think there were some high school boys who one summer tried to start a business that they were offering to pick up from restaurants anywhere in town and deliver anywhere within a, I don't know, a few mile radius all the way up to Log Hill, I think. And I don't know, it sort of petered out after a while. I don't know if somebody like Western Slope Rides offers that kind of thing. I mean, this is one that obviously there's not much I think we can do as town council to promote that, but it's something that I think we should talk about with the community and see if anybody sees it as a business opportunity, because I think it really is one. The third bullet, more signage to direct visitors to off Main Street businesses. That was one I think Stefan from Crum mentioned, if I remember correctly. You know, again, I don't know. I suppose what we could do is we could have staff reach out to CDOT and see if, even though I'm always kind of leery about asking for more signage on 62, because it's already a fairly good mass of signs everywhere, but just kind of there. I think the only thing we could offer would be CDOT's typical kind of the knife and fork symbol on a small blue sign that could go up on one of the speed limit signs, one or more of the speed limit signs in downtown. So I mean, unless anybody else has other ideas, I think that's our best bet is to get with CDOT and see what they can do for us to put up some, you know, business district. We've already got that, right? Don't we have one in front of Hartwell Park that points to the Lena Street turn as a downtown businesses? I don't know if we have one coming from the west, but that, to me, that would make sense to put one of those, you know, basic restaurant graphic signs up somewhere coming down from the west. Preston, can you imagine having a chat with the CDOT crew about potential signage on 62 that might encourage people to turn off to the downtown?
Happy to do that. I do, you know, I'm cognizant about our sign regulations and off-premise signs being or not being allowed, and the town being really careful not to set a precedent over a really long time. But yeah, happy to have that conversation because I think, and I wasn't at the meeting where I think this was brought up, John, but I guess, did this stem from businesses that, well, I guess it just describes it here, the businesses that aren't really on the main street and kind of off the beaten path a little bit, just getting a little bit more attention by way of signage?
Exactly. My recollection is that Stefan at Crum said it would be nice if there was, he thought his business would do better if there were signs on 62 saying, you know, downtown restaurants or downtown businesses this way, you know. And I think what we're talking about is not off-premise signage. It's much more generic kind of downtown business or the kind of graphic wayfinding things that, you know, you see along the highways when you're traveling, whether it's a symbol for a bed or a symbol of a tent for a campground, the symbol of the knife and fork, something like that would say restaurants this way. So totally generic, basically CDOT's what they call TOD signs, tourist-oriented directional signs, is what we're talking about. And we already have a fair amount of that, but anything more we can do to try and direct people to downtown. Of course, you know, the issue that always comes up is if we put a one of those knife and fork graphic signs to the west on 62, directing people to turn left to Clinton Street, then Eatery 66 and Taco Donar are going to go, well, wait a minute, what about us? So it's tricky, but I see Tammy has her hand up. Maybe she has something to add on this item.
So I want to understand from town council, what is the hesitation about sandwich board signs? Be they for Crumb or Kate's or Provisions or anyone? Why is that a problem along 62 if we pick them up and take them out every day? Why does the town council have such an issue with that? About specific?
They're illegal, Tammy. They're off-premise signs, and CDOT does not allow.
Illegal with whom?
CDOT does not allow them. We don't even have a say in it. It's CDOT.
Even if they're set off a certain distance with all of our new sidewalks and stuff?
If they're visible from the highway, CDOT regulates them. If they're visible from a person driving in a car down 62, they claim jurisdiction. We've had this.
So is there?
Back when Jack Young was all up in arms for years, and he convinced Darren to let him put a sign up on Darren's signpost there outside the mountain market about the Chipeta Sun Lodge. That was not legal because CDOT doesn't allow it. And we actually had a CDOT guy come in and make a public presentation about it. Eric, you may remember that.
Yep.
So my question is though, during COVID, during a time when the state is supposed to be supporting businesses that are challenged, is this not a great time to get support from businesses, not just in our town, but in our county, but in our town specifically for 62 to say, this is a way you can help. There are many of us that can lobby and are willing, that's not fair, I totally lied to you. There are a handful of us that are willing to lobby our legislators and different people, and good God, you guys know I'm tenacious. You're gonna be so glad when I sell the grit and leave. But we could, this is a time when it could truly help the businesses. It could truly help the businesses and not just generically saying they're businesses, because when I drive through a town, and I mean, I'm blessed. I mean, at the grid, I need my sandwich board because it does get challenging and there's no way I can put it in front of the boardwalk where people complain that they can't walk by, or put it on the sidewalks where people have to walk. So it's kind of a no-win situation. But my heart goes out to those other people who are smaller businesses that if you don't know to turn, they're screwed, especially in the winter. What can I do as a business owner to help my fellow business owners and reach out to our state and tell them this is the time to change some of the rules that are totally ineffective? Make us put them in and out every day, when we're open, when we're not open. That might help the community to know when our businesses are open. What can I specifically do, and who can I rally and reach out to help CDOT change that?
Preston, do you have a thought? I mean, Tammy, your points is very well taken, and I think that you're exactly right. What needs to happen is that, especially now in the COVID crisis, it's a huge selling point to say this is something that the state can do to help small businesses in rural areas. And whether it's write letters to the regional CDOT director, I don't know. I mean, I can commit to making a call tomorrow to, is Durango still our CDOT regional office, Preston?
Yes, I believe
Region
so.
5, I think it is called. I'll make a call down there if Preston doesn't have time to do it, or maybe both of us do it. To have the mayor call and say, "What can you do to help us?" might start the ball rolling. I mean, you can only imagine if you think our bureaucracy and our regulatory system is not to your liking. Imagine what it's going to be at CDOT in the state. But it certainly, I mean, you're right on to say, who do I call? Because now more than ever, if businesses need help, I think the state needs to be listening.
I wonder
And
if, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Terry.
It's a simple point, but I wonder, if and when COVID is no longer an issue, and I'm not sure, if when the switch turns off, if the businesses wouldn't still want to have that capability.
Oh, they do.
Might be a hard thing to back out of, if you're premising it just on COVID.
Yeah.
What about those signs that you'll see where you're driving down a street and it's like, shopping and dining, turn right, and it's on like the style of sign that has to do with that town. You see it a lot when business districts are off a block, because that would be a kind of permanent boost to our businesses on Clinton Street, you know, an actual mount, not just the blue. I know what you're talking about, John, the blue signs, but, and I don't know if we have a difference because it's a highway, but that Ridgway branding, shopping and dining, go that way.
If they would let us do that, I mean, we've got the Ridgway branded directional signs already. Some people would argue they're not legible enough and not functional, but I mean, I see Juice. Is that Tammy? Is that your guy, Juice?
Yes.
Go ahead, Juice.
Okay. Can y'all hear me okay? I'm on headphone.
Yep.
So I just had a couple things to say about it. As far as like the businesses, and I get that total point of, you know, obviously if I owned a business off and I had a sign and all of a sudden you took it away, I'd be like, hey, what about my sign? If we put in some like language as far as saying temporary, you know, and, you know, put in that language of temporary during COVID or whatnot. And the second point is, what about banners that hang over the street? You know, you see all time, and I don't know the regulations. So like the banners that say, oh, West Fest coming, blah, blah, blah. What if, could the highway have anything to do with that? Or would they allow a banner to go across to say, hey, turn next right for more dining and food options? You know, you don't want to be specific with the restaurants, but just in general, like restaurant, there's Kate's, there's Colorado Boy. I mean, there are a ton of places. I can't tell you how many times I direct people to Kate's and Crumb during the morning when I'm like, no, we don't open till 11, guys. Give me a minute. You know, so that's just my 2 cents I wanted to bring up.
Thanks. Yeah, the banner thing, we've explored, again, the CDOT and the regulations, and I'm almost certain you see them a lot in Montrose, and it's always about a event like, oh, the county fair, or, you know, Sweet Corn Day, something like that. You know, to do a banner across the highway that would be just related to businesses, even if it was generic, I don't think would fly. I think what I mentioned earlier and what Beth mentioned in terms of actual signage attached to, whether it be speed limit sign poles or whatever that already exist, that say downtown business district and an arrow pointing towards Clinton Street. Those are the kinds of things I'm certain we can do if we haven't already crossed our threshold of how, the number of those they allow. And, you know, it's, I think the best bet, based on what both you guys are saying, Juice and Tammy, is we need to figure out who to talk to at the state, at the Department of Highways, to Department of Transportation, to say, what can you guys do to help us out? And maybe temporarily relax the off-premise sign restrictions. But it would have to be temporary, because as Terry says, I know people would want it to last forever once it's allowed. And I'm almost certain that CDOT wouldn't allow that permanent change. So why don't you let us see what we can do in terms of finding out who at CDOT we can talk to, for at least for our region, if not for the state, and see if they're willing to make some changes based on what's going on.
You know, the other thing you often see is a sign that points to a historic district or a business district. And sometimes you'll see, you know, the knife and fork or something like that on those kinds of signs. I don't know if that's stretching the rules or something, but
well,
you know,
like
they turn on Lena and by the post office, there's a sign that points up, up the street, up Clinton.
Right.
Maybe that's a way of circumventing that regulation.
That's possible. I mean, and I think we residents sort of stop seeing the forest for the trees sometimes. I'm pretty certain that there's a sign mounted on a pole next to Hartwell Park when you're coming up the highway from the river that says downtown business district and points to turn right at Lena. I'm pretty certain that's already there.
There is that sign.
So I just think we need to further explore what CDOT will allow us to do. Tammy, do you have a different point on all this?
Yes, sir. I'll reach out to the Colorado Restaurant Association tomorrow because they're constantly sending us requests and surveys and things of that nature. And I will
Great.
forward that information to our chamber. And
Okay.
hopefully they can send it out to membership and try to get some participation from other restaurants because those guys are working hard on behalf of restaurants trying to help us stay viable.
Great. Sounds good. Copy me
Thank
on
you.
that. Good.
I will.
Thank you. So the next bullet on the document here from Tanner and Glenn is help with sidewalk and snow clearing to make it easier for customers. This is always a big point when winter is approaching. I know that we heard from Laura loud and clear, Laura Fike, that she wasn't happy about her increased sidewalk in front of her building, but she gets out there and shovels it herself every day when there's snow. And, you know, every community I've ever been in, it's standard operating procedure that it's the property owner abutting a sidewalk's responsibility to clear that sidewalk. Now, that being said, I know, again, with my involvement with the Charbonneau and 610 downtown, there's been talk with those businesses on Clinton Street in that block about having a sort of a unified effort to find somebody to shovel for all those businesses on at least that side of the street. I talked to Preston earlier, either this week or late last week, about wanting to get clarification again as we go into winter about just exactly what the timing is. I know when we first completed the ramp project, the policy was that if you got out and shoveled early enough before the plows were going around, you could shovel just directly into the street so that the plows could clear it out as they went through. Apparently, the guy who was shoveling for the Charbonneau at 610 was getting mixed messages from some of the town crew about when exactly that hour was that they had to be, that the snow had to be shoveled into the street by. So I asked Preston to look into that and see about getting clarification. Preston, do you have anything to report on that?
No, not yet, but yeah, it's on my list to, I've met with Chase to get a pretty thorough rundown of what the procedure is. We do have a flyer that I think was updated last year that we can, it's all going to revolve around communication. So it's on my list
Yeah, exactly.
to reach out to to the business community just to make them aware or remind them of what the process is.
Yeah, and you know, I guess I would just say that as far as the idea of help with sidewalk and snow clearing, that the town crew is limited. You know, we don't have the manpower to shovel people's sidewalks for them, especially given that if we did it for one person, we'd have to do it for everybody, and then it's all over. But my thought would be there are other ways that the community could find people willing to volunteer to help the businesses that are struggling. Maybe get out and help them shovel their sidewalks in the winter. That depends on how much snow we get this year, and it's not looking great. But I think we just need to. It's kind of a communication thing amongst the community members, almost a Facebook kind of effort, maybe.
What about the supply of sidewalk salt or something of that nature? Shoveling is one thing, but then they ice up. What if we could somehow provide that?
It's a good question. We've had to try and remind businesses not to use salt specifically because it eats
whatever the right chemical is or whatever.
Right. I don't know if there's something we could do. It's almost a form of PPE, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe we could look into seeing if we could afford to buy some of that to distribute to businesses. I don't know. Something to look into.
You could think about with something like those de-icers, you could think about getting some large like plastic bins and just put them in strategic places with a little scoop in them that, you know, people need to use it, they can use it.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
big solar heliostats to melt the ice.
There you go.
That's your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this last bullet, help coordinate opening and closing dates of restaurants to ensure dining options are available every day. That's, I don't remember that one coming up, but that's a really good one from my perspective. It's funny how there are days of the week where there's only 1 or 2 restaurants open, and it's natural that, you know, the weekends where most everybody's open, and then the early part of the week is less plentiful, but I'm not sure whose job that should be. It sounds like a chamber job to me, actually, to help get the restaurants talking together and making sure everybody's cooperating on making sure there's more than just 1 or 2 options every day. And then I think I'm just going through this letter. As Preston said, the policy group, which is representatives of both town of Ridgway, City of Uray, and the county, has committed to spending upwards of 25 grand of CARE Act funds to buy masks and gloves and stuff for our local businesses, and that's in the works. Glenn and Tanner have been working really hard on that, and I think it's close, but I'm not. We'll find out, I guess, tomorrow night how close it is. I don't know. Anybody have any other ideas, I guess?
Excuse me.
I mean, I know one of the things that was going around out of Eco Action Partners, I can't remember, well, it wouldn't have involved San Miguel Power because it was Black Hills offering a rebate on natural gas powered space heaters. But the requirements for that was so crazy. You had to be hooked up to commercial natural gas line. And I mean, to me, it seemed it was a significant rebate, but the cost of connecting the things sure seemed like it was going to get, like it would be exorbitant. And I don't know that many businesses are going to think that it's worth spending the money on outdoor heaters if people aren't willing to sit out in the cold, even with a heater, to eat their meals. That's the only other thing that's not on here that I was wondering if we had thoughts about.
It was something Ben was really into, the space heater thing.
Yeah.
I brought that up to Preston, and it sounds like we're all really jazzed on it and restaurants aren't.
Well,
is that fair, Preston?
You know, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I was going to call you out, Beth, because we had exchanged emails about the heaters. So yeah, I didn't hear that in the business meeting that I was in. John, you were in both. Did you hear? You didn't hear?
I didn't hear a bunch of this, but I think my sense is that it's just because when it's wintertime and it's, you know, 20 degrees or less out, you can huddle under a little heater and try and eat your dinner, but it's only going to be so successful.
But your back gets really cold. Yeah.
And so does your dinner. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think the restaurants are smart in saying it's probably not worth the investment to
thanks but no thanks.
Small amount of use that it would generate. So it's tricky. Well, I think we're doing a lot. I don't know that we're doing everything we can, but I'm not sure how we come up with more. So we've just to summarize, we've directed staff to look into finding some parking places near restaurants to label for curbside pickup. Staff, you're okay with that?
Yes, sir.
And then Tammy's gonna look into her connections for trying to generate signage for off Main Street businesses. Preston and/or I will reach out to CDOT Region 5 and see what they have to say. Preston's working with staff, Public Works, to get a clear, concise communication about snow clearing requirements and when you can just shovel into the street for the plows to pick it up. Anything else? Well, keep your thinking caps on, and Sammy, seeing as you're kind of looks like you're the last business that's still on the call here. Please do reach out to the chamber. Please talk to your fellow business owners and let us know if you guys have some new ideas that you'd like us to try and pursue. We're here for you if we can be. So unless there's any more on that item, I will move on to item number 22, appointment of Marshall Smaltz to the Uray County Emergency Telephone Service Authority, AKA the 911 board. Preston?
Yep, thanks, Mayor. Pretty straightforward. Looking for council to consider formally appointing Marshall Schmaltz as the town's primary rep on the Uray County Emergency Telephone Service Authority, also known as the 911 board, and then to appoint Deputy Hanson as the alternate representative.
Great, seems like a no-brainer.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah.
I move to appoint Marshall Shane Smaltz as the town's primary representative on the Uray County Emergency Telephone Service Authority, also known as the 911 Board, and Deputy Ryan Hanson as the alternate representative.
Great, thank you. Second, who's seconding?
Second.
Haven't got it. Motion's made and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselors Cheek.
Aye.
Grambly.
Aye.
Lakin.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Schuyler.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
He stepped away again, so passes unanimously based on who's present at the moment. And that takes us to written reports. You've all got the town manager's report in front of you. Preston, anything you want to highlight, or does anybody have any questions for Preston on this?
I think it's worth highlighting. We had Tanner and his team hosted with the National Guard, that community-wide testing event at the 4-H Center today. Saw some of you there. I think they're still tabulating the total turnout, and I think in the end, I'll forward you an email, but it sounds like they had to turn some people away towards the end, just after running out of tests. But total number of tests administered falling right at or maybe just below 1,000 for today. And I spent a good with Shane and Ryan about 3 hours helping to direct traffic and get people registered, and it was just mind-blowing how many people ended up checking it out and wanting to get tested. It was unreal. So really great event, and Tanner, Glenn, that whole team worked really hard to put that together. And Glenn sent me a text. I'm just going to read it to you. The testers, the folks who administered all the tests just told us we just broke a record for the most tests done at a testing site in a single day ever in Colorado.
Wow.
I mean, like, that's the weirdest superlative that I don't even know how to feel about it.
I'll send you guys an email with more info.
The Plains dealer reported there were still 120 people in line at 5:30 when we started this meeting.
Yeah.
I tried to get tested, and I didn't think it was going to take an hour for us to do it, so I had to bail.
Yeah, I tried twice. I had to bail.
But that's great. I mean,
I've been waiting for an hour, so it was
I
possible.
waited.
good for you guys. I didn't allow myself enough time. Obviously, I thought it would take like a half an hour, but I think we, including the National Guard, had no idea that the turnout that there would be.
Well, I think the timing right after Halloween and the election, and with the mine, everyone's motivated.
Good
Our
idea.
community come in Telluride tomorrow. Is that right, Eric? 7 to 7, and that's at Lawson Hill.
Yeah, it's at the transfer station area, I guess. So it's essentially by the Conoco. So a big parking area there.
Do you know if they're doing pre-registration like they did in Erie County?
You know, I didn't look at the flyer that close, but probably. It's the same team, just moving uphill.
Right.
So I'm sure they are.
I would guess there'll be as big a turnout there.
Yeah.
Well, we did in the med center, we did over 350 tests last week. Last week. And as of today, we've done over 120. So.
And are you doing the
Do a
PCR?
spit test.
The spit test.
Do a saliva test.
Okay.
Actually
Well-
goes to Lubbock, Texas. We get the results back usually within 48 hours.
That's good. Well, we gotta get a handle on this because it's definitely going nuts again. Anything else in Preston's usual very comprehensive and complete report? Anybody want to ask about?
Yeah, I got one question here. I don't know that they're gonna have an answer on it right away, but seeing the water leak on Sherman and knowing that we had another one over by the post office this summer, I'm wondering if there's a similar failure or if this is just circumstantial. We had a couple of breaks this summer and fall.
Yeah, I don't think they are related in any way. I don't know, which one are you referring to over by the post office, Russ?
That break like 2 months ago that was right by the turnaround.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't know why I forgot about that. Yeah, that one was that was just a raw water line that busted there and then degraded the area. So we got that got that all set. But this one at the second chance, I think has been an issue for at least a little while.
Months.
For months, and it had been on the list to disconnect from that. I'll probably butcher this explanation, and Joanne might be able to do it better than I can, or even Pam. But disconnect from the main on 62 there, and then come across Railroad Street, or redo it across Railroad Street. So it was in the pipeline for a while.
Okay.
It required boring under the street and they had to stop the traffic. So it was much larger than what we usually do when there's a break.
Yeah. I noticed that. I had to reroute my traffic several times, so.
Pavilion's looking great.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah,
It's looking fantastic.
Did you have your final walkthrough on that today?
Yeah, Shay and Mike walked through with Jimmy and those guys from Gaboski. Haven't had a chance to. Looks like Shay dropped off, but I chatted with Mike. It seemed like it went pretty well. There's still some items to shore up, but it's looking great.
Great. Yeah, it's very exciting. Encourage everybody to take a picture or a video or something near it or about it or something to include in the video that Shay's making for the celebration, the virtual celebration that we'll do in December, and then we'll have a real one once things open back up again next year, hopefully.
Are we gonna have the best backlog of celebrations?
Yeah.
2020.
It's gonna take 2-3 years for us to just do all the celebrations. Yeah.
It'll be a full year of celebration.
That's right. Celebrate the end of 2020, that's for sure. Anybody have any committee reports? Hearing crickets. I think we're all done. What time is it? It's 9:15. It's relatively early.
Hey, Mayor, real quick, I should have brought this up before with Tessa leaving. I think the next planning commission meeting is on December 1st, if I'm not mistaken, right? Tessa?
Yeah, we rescheduled, so I'm gonna have to write them a goodbye. Yeah. Oh, but it does affect, yeah.
Yeah, so may need to think about appointing someone else on council as the representative to the planning commission.
That's a good point. Thank you. Yeah. Well, does anybody have any interest?
I do.
Oh, cool.
I'm so glad you said that so fast. I was like, it sounds cool, but I don't have the capacity.
Cool. It's really cool and fun. Yeah.
All right. Well,
right on, Russ.
Hearing Russ's interest, let's make Russ the new planning commission representative from town council. Welcome aboard.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for thinking of that, Preston.
We always comment on Preston's joke, which he passed off this time, but
Yeah, speaking of which, I'm insulted that he didn't consult me for that joke.
So the wolf, the vote on the reintroduction of the wolves, I think might have passed slimly in the state, but it didn't pass our county, I noticed.
No.
But I'm not sure. It was too close to call last time I saw it. Did it finally pass the state?
It did pass the state. It
Did
did
it
not pass in Ridgway County.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Well,
Anyway.
Pass on our thanks to Jess for her joke this month. And Bo, all I can say is you just have to step up and start supplying some if you want to compete.
Apparently.
Armchair quarterback.
Anyone is welcome. Any one of us is welcome to submit a joke. The more the merrier, as they say. All right. Well, since we've reached the end of the agenda, and unless I hear objection, I will declare us adjourned.
Sweet.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thanks, Tessa.
Thank you, Tessa.
Tessa, you're awesome. We're gonna miss you.
Yeah, thanks for your service, Tessa.
Thank you, Tessa.
Oh, thanks, Pam. Thanks, Preston. Thanks. Oh God, just thanks, John. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Russ.
Keep in touch, will you? Please.
Yeah.
Keep in touch
Oh,
with us.
yeah. And I'll be back. I'll be kind of commuting a little bit for work here and there, so you haven't seen the last of me yet.
Good.
Good.
Glad to hear that. Well, all the best. You take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you as soon as we can.
I look forward to seeing how Ridgway changes and grows, and I know she's in good hands. So she's also a girl. I don't know if you guys knew that. See you guys. Take care.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, Preston. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you all.
Yeah, good night.
Night, guys.
Night.